Hello and welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the continuation of the NXTCC Season 2 as hosted on the premier sim racing platform available only on PC, known as iRacing. And today marks round 3 of 8 in the Championship Series, known in full as the NXTGEN Racing Touring Car Championship, and it poses, of course, the ultimate question. Who is the king of the front-engine, front-wheel drive machine that is the Touring Car Racing Class car? With Honda Civic Type Rs, Hyundai Elantras, Hyundai Velosters and Audi RS3s taking to each of our 8 circuit venues, we're going to be answering that question little by little as our drivers compete in the Pro and the Pro-Am Championship classes, and also our teams go head-to-head to be the team's champion. And as the story makes its way over to the European continent, and in particular to Belgium, we are here today at everybody's second favourite Belgian circuit. No, it's not Spa-Francorchamps, it is Circuit Zolder. Located in the Heusden-Zolder region of Belgium, this circuit is a very tricky circuit in the fact that it's highly technical in nature and is typically known for its free chicanes, which we'll come to shortly. But first, of course, let's tell you a little bit about our schedule for tonight. Times in Greenwich Mean Time, that's GMT, or Universal Coordinated Time, UTC. We'll be getting underway with our first qualifying session of the evening, our only qualifying session, and that will be in just under 19 minutes time at 8:30 this evening. 20 minutes in length, all the drivers will be out of the circuit vying for spaces in order to be able to set their best possible times, and indeed track position and space today is going to be critical given how tight this circuit is and also how short this circuit relatively is, despite the lap time being just over 1.5 minutes on average. After that, we'll be heading straight into our first of 3 races for tonight. Of course, we have the 3 race format, all 3 races being sprint races, and race number 1 will be occurring and kicking off at about 10 to 9 this evening, while drivers will have that standing start and get underway for 15 laps of racing. Alternatively, if the race goes on long enough, it'll be 30 minutes depending on safety cars. And then we take a brief pause before returning as per the schedule, and anticipated 9:25 this evening for the build up to race number 2, another 15 minutes of racing action, where we take another brief breather and then return for our final race of the evening. That'll be race number 3, 15 laps in length, and we'll be getting the anticipation and building up to it at approximately 10:05 this evening. Indeed, we have a packed schedule and a packed circuit to go with it, and packed virtual stands, and it's great to see so many of you tuning in at home. And whether you're tuning in via the official NXTGEN Racing YouTube channel, alternatively the official NXTGEN Racing Facebook group, of course go to facebook.com/groups/NXTGEN Racing, or you tune on Twitch at twitch.tv/TX141. We have 3 media platforms available for your viewing pleasure, and you can tune in live tonight. Now, as for who is TX141, well, that is I, your host and commentator. Allow me to introduce myself. My name is Paul Walsh, also known as TX141 or Britain a Spit, depending on what media you follow me on, and I'll be bringing you all of your racing action over the course of tonight and indeed the entirety of this season. And what 2 brilliant opening rounds we've had so far, and the story continues here, and we're expecting another intense round of racing. And really, how can we get ever more intense compared to last time out in Spain at the Circuit de Barcelona-Catalunya, where we saw their tempers were hot, indeed plenty of battling, a number of drivers finding their points disappear into the ether with major incidents which put them out of the running. But still, the story continues, and let's look to that calendar. As we make our way closer and closer towards break week, with of course this being an 8-round series split into 2 equal halves of 4, and in the future we will be having that break week across the Christmas week. 13th of December today marks the Circuit Zolder round in round number 3. Preceding this, of course, we started off all the way back on the 29th of November in the United Kingdom at the Donington Park Grand Prix circuit, and there we saw all of our drivers gradually building up to speed and getting used to battling with one another. Of course, some returning veterans of Season 1, but also newcomers of Season 2. You may recall in our season opener in Season 1, we had approximately 30 drivers, whereas this season we have kicked off with a magnitude of 40 drivers. Indeed, everyone having to really sort out where they fit in amongst one another and who battles as hard as the others, who's perhaps a little bit lighter on the batting and who's a bit more intense, etc. And then as they made the way from Donington Park to the Circuit de Barcelona-Catalunya, there we saw in Spain the intensity amplified considerably, but one thing remained consistent in the Pro class, and that was Mikey Doble's overall dominance of the Pro class, with 5 wins out of 6, albeit those 5 initial wins being undermined by a disastrous race number 3 at last time out, and indeed Will Redford being able to pick up the 6th win of the season, and therefore his first win on the tally. Meanwhile, in the Pro-Am class, a little bit of a different complexion by comparison, with our 2 leading stars of the Pro-Am class at Donington Park of Martin Shirley and Michael Lees being promoted up to what was the Pro class for the purposes of round number 2 at Circuit de Barcelona-Catalunya, and it was the rise of the prominence of Reese Watt, our triple winner in Spain, and the driver absolutely dominating in the Spanish territory, and can he continue continue that tonight. Well, after tonight, of course, we'll have our 4th round in a week's time in Austria at the Red Bull Ring on the 20th of December before we take our break week, and then we return on the 3rd of January in a new year of 2023 at the Twin Ring Motegi Circuit in Japan, before then making our way across the Pacific to the United States of America for the Watkins Glen International Circuit for round number 6 on the 10th of January, and then we make our way back to Europe for the German Circuit and Motorsport Arena Oschersleben on the 17th of January in our penultimate round, before wrapping up in Brazil at Interlagos on the 24th of January 2023. And indeed, a packed schedule ahead. We've still got plenty of racing to go, but before we can get to the race ahead, we must start with today, and let's go into today by telling you a little bit about our championship point standings. We start off then with the overall standings, begin with our top 20, and we can see here overall with both our driver classes put onto a single page and their points all standardised. Mikey Doble leads the way by only 6 points over Will Redford, with Mikey Doble having that difficult 3rd race in Spain really cost him dearly, and therefore the gap has closed up quite considerably. However, Doble does have the initiative, he has the advantage, and therefore one would argue that he is able to carry that momentum forward tonight. Is it just a speed bump in the road, or is it something more significant as we make our way to Circuit Zolder? Well, only time will tell. Adam Delmont there in P3, 20 points off of the top 2, but on 107 points there, also breaking clear of the pursuing pack, which is led by Chris Daines in P4 on 59 points, only ahead of Jamie Dory based on result countback. We've seen plenty of sparks flying between Chris Daines, Jamie Dory and a number of their peers so far, and we're expecting that to continue due to the ferocity of the pace in the pro class, with Kieran Sharp, Martin Shirley, Sam Smith, Andrew Pine and Gavin Gardner completing the overall top 10, and a big mention there too at Martin Shirley, who despite being promoted to the pro class, did not let it faze him last time out in Spain, and definitely delivered on some major performances. Then best of the rest there in P11, Gianni Peroni for Verano Motorsport ahead of Michael Leese and John Higgins Jr., with Adam McNally there in P14 having a good run of results so far, trying to be Mr. Consistent, and we're expecting plenty more for him tonight. And Nick Clemens rounding off our top 15 there and the run of the pros before we come to our leading prime driver, and of course Reece Watt there in P16 with that triplet of wins last time out, giving himself major overall points and giving himself an opportunity to jump to the head of the Pro-Am group in the overall standings. Only 3 clear of Matthew Addy, and we're expecting there to be a significant rivalry between the two of them as the season presses on. Alan McCain in P18 ahead of Joseph Doble and Daniel Holmer to complete the top 20, and outside the top 20 going from 21st through to 40th, we can see here Ian Manners on 5 points, only ahead of Lee Horn based on result countback. Lee Horn having a very difficult day in Spain with a number of key results going away from him in the Pro-Am class. Sebastian Bruberg there in P23, and we should point out that Sebastian Bruberg has been promoted back to the Pro-Am class. He was in the Pro class last time out, he was promoted after round number 1, but he's been switched back to the Pro-Am class, and we'll tell you a little bit about those class switches in due course. With Bram Clays there, also moving to the Pro-Am class today, and John Higgins Senior in P25. Not in attendance today on a holiday, but we're expecting him back in a week's time. Isaac Doble, Mark Sykes, Bobby Thompson, Wayne Douglas and Thomas Delaney complete the run to the top 30, and you'll notice all of our drivers from P28 onwards have yet to score points in the overall standings, and that extends to Paul Scott, Matt Emmons, Shane Abbott, Daniel Weston, Nigel Stott, Luke Jones, Trev Anderson, Liam Silkstone, Rob McGregor, Jason Morris, and outside the top 40 there, not to be forgotten about Sean Scooter, Stefan Vessels, Elwin Sykes, Davide Favo, Josh Brown, Jonathan Collins and Philip Bruberg. But now we come on to the Pro Championship classification, and here we can see that in the Pro class specifically, with all the points adjusted once again, that it is Mikey Doble who leads the way with a 12-point advantage, and that goes to show you the gravitas of what happened in race number 3 last time out in Spain, with the fact that he went into the round with a sizable advantage of over 20 points. That advantage has been slashed considerably, and will it be slashed again? That'll be the question, because it was Will Redford versus Mikey Doble in all 3 races based on pace, and Redford could be the one to potentially turn the tables around tonight. Adam Delmont there in P3, again 21 points off of the top 2 right now, but with a sizable advantage of 39 points to Chris Daines. What that means effectively for Adam Delmont is in a bit of a no man's land at the moment. He'll be looking to pick up the pieces with the top 2 battling one another, and he'll be hoping he can potentially pick up a win or 2. Then Chris Daines in P4 ahead of Jamie Dory by an advantage of 8 points in class, where the advantage is gradually swinging the way of Chris Daines, with the Verano Motorsport driver definitely finding himself at the thick end of the stick with regards to the battling last time out, but all showing saying that tenacity and that consistency and achieving point scores, with Jamie Dory P5, 2 points clear of Kieran Sharp, with Martin Shirley on 53 points, only ahead of Sam Smith based on result countback, and then 46 points Andrew Pike's way. And Andrew Pike, of course, the Sim Racing Collective driver, one of 2 drivers for the Sim Racing Collective, the other being Kieran Sharp. Andrew Pike finally getting some major results on the board last time out, not quite on the runner form compared to Kieran Sharp, but still up there and getting himself noticed. Gavin Gardner there completed the top 10 on 39 points, only 3 clear of best of the rest driver Michael Leese, with John Higgins Jr. in P12 having a difficult day last time out in Spain, hoping that the circumstances will be different today, with Adam McNally, Gianni Perone, Nick Clemens, Bobby Thompson and Wayne Douglas completing our pro standings. But as we then come on to our Pro-Am classification, We can see here that Reece Watt now jumping into lead, a major overhaul of points with those 3 wins back-to-back in Spain, now with an advantage extending to what is there 24 points over Matthew Addy. And indeed, this may sound familiar because that's the exact same margin that Mikey Doble had in the Pro Class after round number 1. Will we see a similar turn of events occur today where Reece Watt is reeled back into an extent, or will he be able to further extend his advantage tonight and be dominant once again? Well, Matthew Addy will have something to say about that after a difficult time in Spain. On 87 points, he's only 5 clear of Alan McCain, who rose to the occasion, with Joseph Doble out on 72 points, jumping ahead of Lee Horn, with Lee Horn now down in P5 on 64 points and looking to turn it around tonight. 2 points clear of Ian Manners, and then Daniel Holmer, Mark Sykes, Philip Bruberg and Jason Morris completing the top 10, with John Higgins, senior, best of the rest there in P11 after a good run of results in Spain, enjoying the racing, no doubt about it, last time out. Trevor Addison in P12 ahead of Luke Jones and Matt Emmons, with Isaac Doble there on 24 points, 2 behind Matt Emmons, and the 2 of them we have seen go toe-to-toe in Spain. We're expecting more of that tonight. And Sebastian Bruberg down 20 points, looking to try and find his feet within the Prime class once again. Jonathan Collins down 17 points, perhaps running the miss with a couple of results, but still looking to build on the campaign. With Davide Favo there ahead of Paul Scott based on result count back in P18, and Sean Scudder completing the top 20. And outside the top 20 in the Prime class, we can see here Elwyn Sykes ahead of Bram G. Clays based on result count back. And we should point out that Bram Clays has been switched to the Prime class for tonight ahead of Nigel Stock on 6 points, Daniel Weston and Thomas Delaney both on 4 points apiece, P24, P25, and then Josh Brown, Liam Silkstone and Rob McGregor yet to score points, completing the Prime standings. But then we come on to the Teams Championship, and we can see here in the Teams Championship right now, leading the way by a considerable margin is NDA Honda Racing on 256 points, 110 clear of the chasing pack, as led by Excite Racing, and it is the combination of Jamie Doyle, Mikey Doble, Joseph Doble and Will Redford that looks to be unstoppable at the moment, and particularly focusing on Mikey Doble and Will Redford, who are gathering the momentum within the Teams Championship with the team alongside, and definitely pick up the lion's share of the points. But let's not count out the performances of Dory, alternatively Joseph Doble. Then for Excite Racing, they perhaps not had the stellar performances compared to NDA Honda Racing, but they're continuing a good run of form, and that's put them in P2 on effort ahead of Verano Motorsport there by an advantage now 22 points, with 102 points there in the name of the Sim Racing Collective. Keeping in mind, of course, that only 2 drives of Andrew Pike and Kieran Sharp, and that goes to show you how much of a turnaround it was in Spain compared to the disaster of Donington Park. In P5 there, iRacing Esports at 67 points, 10 clear of P16 Simtech Racing, with them having an advantage of 16 points in turn over HSR, and then rounding off the top 10 was NXTGEN Racing Yellow going into tonight, JW Motorsport and Bright Esports. But just outside the top 10, and not to be forgotten about, best of the rest is the combination of Mark Sykes, Thomas Delaney, Jonathan Collins and Paul Scott in NextGen Racing Blue, but they've got 0 points, and much like their peers of CSA Racing and also 52 Zilla with Crest Racing, and only ahead of one another based on result count back at the moment, but all looking to score their first points in their championship campaigns. So then the question comes on, what about the Manufacturers' Championship? And we look here to the Manufacturers' Championship, which determines, of course, the success ballast that is applied to each of the cars available tonight. And we can see that the Honda Civic Type R has been the dominant car over the course of the season so far, standing at 453 points accrued in the Manufacturers' Championship, and therefore it will be taking the full success ballast of 75 kilograms tonight. Meanwhile, the Hyundai Elantra there, coming in second, only 2 points clear of the Hyundai Veloster. It's very close between the two Hyundais, and we will see the Elantras take 50 kilograms of success ballast, and the Veloster only taking 25 by comparison, and then the Audi RS3 will be taking no success ballast, having only got 34 points on the board, and the Audi not the most popular car by comparison. But as we come onto our circuit for today then, well, we are at the Circuit Zolder, but we are running the alternate version of the Heusden Zolder circuit, located in Belgium, and indeed some of you who are Anorax and Motorsport may also know that this circuit is known as Circuit de Spa-Francorchamps, whereby it is an undulating 4-kilometre long circuit, or to put that in British miles, that is just shy of 2.5 miles, and this circuit consisting of 10 corners as shown to us by the circuit map provided to us by simracingwiki.com. Thank you to them as always for their absolutely superb circuit maps. This is a circuit which is focused around its 3 chicanes. However, the difference between this layout in terms of the alternate layout and the standard Grand Prix layout is the final corner, where it's the faster version of the Jackie Ickbox chicane rather than the slower version. But let's take you around the lap here based on the diagram. So as our drivers make their way across the start finish line down into turn number 1, they'll head into left-hander, trail braking the way into the apex corner before getting back on the pound nice and early and heading up towards turn number 2. Into the sharp right-hander, the aim of the game will be to take a nice early apex and straight line the car out of the corner and go flat out through the kink of 3 or as close as possible to it. Making the way up to the right-hander at turn number 4, it's going to be a dab of the brakes, get the car to hook into the apex per curbing, and then make the way onto the power as soon as possible and down the straight all the way out to the Kleiner chicane at turn 5. There, the left-right combination, a very tricky combination with 2 very prominent curbs, and as a result, our drivers will need to try and thread the needle between the 2 and straight line between the curbs. Get it right and they'll carry a lot of speed up the hill into turn number 6. Get it wrong, they may end up damaging the suspension. Making the way uphill into turn number 6, the kink left-hander before getting onto the brakes of the turn 7 chicane. Sometimes classified as 4 separate corners, but we're classifying it as a single corner. The Talerman-Bocht chicane is made up of a right left-hander, which is coming down all the way to 2nd or 1st gear, depending on car choice. Now drivers will make the way through a brief right-hander to try and get as close as possible to flat out before then trying to go flat out through the final right-hander, which takes them all the way in the run to the turn 8 hairpin. A right-angled hairpin, that'll be one of the heaviest braking zones on the circuit, and as our drivers make the way out to turn number 8, they'll come through the kink of 9 at Jochen Ringbok corner and make the way all the way into the Jackie Ickbok chicane of turn number 10. And this is where we're going to be seeing perhaps the danger tonight for a good number of drivers, because normally when it's a slow chicane or the Grand Prix chicane, it's all about being the boldest on the brakes. In the alternate version, our drivers have got to try and carry as much speed as possible through the chicane without hitting the outside wall, and you'll get to see what exactly we're talking about when we ride on board in qualifying. But as for our rules tonight, of course, let's give you a quick recap of the rules. We get to see here, this in terms of setup, it is a fixed setup series, and driver classes are currently provisional. But after today, they will be finalised as the end of round number 3. So after today, we will not be seeing any driver switch class following round number 4 onwards. We may see some switches going into round number 4, but no more beyond that. As for our races, let's give you a quick reminder of how the grids will be set. The race 1 grid, of course, will be set based on the qualifying results in the first qualifying session, and the only qualifying session kicking off in just under 4 minutes' time. The race 2 grid shall be set based on the results of race number 1, so your race winner in race 1 starts on pole. Meanwhile, your last place finisher, well, they start right at the back. And the race 3 grid shall be a reverse grid based on the results of race number 2, with the reversal position being drawn live on air. We'll be cutting over to the commentary booth and I'll do the live draw for you, and remembering the fact that we can only draw from P6 through to P12, but we cannot draw P10 tonight because that was the reverse grid position for round number 2 last week. Each driver shall have 2 fast repairs available in each of the races, and each race shall conclude either after the allotted lap amount or 30 minutes of racing if we do see safety cars being deployed. Some additional rules as well, where we do also see here that in terms of race stewarding, we will have an independent race director watching for track limit infringements and also for the deployment of the safety car, and the penalties for track limit infringements shall be distributed as follows. The 1st to 3rd warnings, no penalty, our drivers just literally get a warning. The 4th warning, they'll get a 5-second post-race time penalty. The 5th warning, that gets amplified to 10 seconds, and the 6th warning, they'll be getting a drive-through penalty as applied during the race. Drive-through penalties must be served within 3 laps, and racing incidents shall be reviewed post-round. That's not under the jurisdiction of our independent race director today. But that's enough about rules, regulations, and everything in between. I know what you're all here for. Let's head back to our live pictures here as our drivers get ready to go, and we do look to one Chris Daines, who is in fact in the pit lane at the moment, so we're not going to quite catch him. But instead, what we do look to is Mikey Doble here, of course, our overall and pro championship leader, as he makes his way in the run down towards turn number 1, being a bit obscured there by the grandstand, but as he heads into left hand. Indeed, some rather distant camera shots here. Our camera were quite limited today in terms of where our cameraman are placed, but we'll do our best to make sure we give you all the racing action where possible. And as we see Mikey Doble gradually smoothing his way through turn 2 into turn 3, we do say hello in the Facebook chat there to Katie Eames. And well, I'm doing very well, Katie, and I hope you're doing well as well on this cold wintry evening in the United Kingdom, and saying that let's hope no one sends it too hard into the fast chicanes. Well, indeed, it could be a little bit of drama at the fast chicane of turn number 10, and also in the chicanes in general, given the fact that Tenacity drives to want to outbrake one another into the chicane sequence corners. We also say hello there to Bernardo Colbe in the YouTube chat. I hope you're doing well, Bernardo, and you're having a great day. Indeed, to all of you tuning in at home, whether you're on the Twitch, the YouTube, or the Facebook stream, do not be shy. Feel free to say hi. We can see all 3 chats, and I hope you're having a good start to your week. And indeed, if you're having to deal with the snow at the moment, I hope you're able to enjoy the snow and it's not impeding you too much as we get closer and closer to a potential white Christmas. But as we see Mark Arrowsmith there saying, good evening all, season 3, please move the night so I can come back. Lee Horn misses me. We do miss you as well, Mark, and well, we'll have to see what we can do about season 3, but we do miss seeing you flying around there on circuit. But I hope all is well with yourself. But we've only got now approximately what is 1 minute to go before we head into the qualifying session, so we're not going to be giving you any pre-qualifying interviews of any of our drivers, ladies and gentlemen, as there's not enough time to do so. We want to give them every opportunity to be able to take the mental fortitude and focus on getting ready. But what instead we're going to do here is just take a look at Elwin Sykes from CSA Team 3, the South African driver making his way into the fast chicane, and there it is in terms of the speed our drivers have got to carry through that chicane, and that goes to show you the severity in terms of if they get it wrong, well, it could be curtains as they make the way out of the corner because they do have that outside wall which comes up very fast and quick. But as we look to Adam Delmont, meanwhile, making his way up the hill into turns 8 and 9 very shortly for Excite Racing in the number 77 Honda. And will we expect it to be the run of form here, I guess, is the big question. Well, we have seen time and time again, the Honda Civic Type R does seem to be the number one car in terms of car choice at the moment, even with the 75 kilogram success ballast. But we did see in Spain whether some of the Honda drivers did start to succumb to that extra weight starting to wear down the front tyres over the duration of the races. And we are also seeing some drivers in alternate cars and manufactured machines creeping the way up into the order. Of course, the pole lap at Circuit de Barcelona Catalunya was set by Gianni Perrone in the Hyundai, but we can see here a Hyundai Wayne Douglas in the NXTGEN Racing at yellow Veloster, currently P2 in this practice session. But of course, we can't read too much into it for the simple reason that we are waiting to see who puts down the market in qualifying. And of course, Gianni Perrone parked there for Renault Motorsport in the 35 Elantra, setting that pole lap in Spain. So we are seeing that success ballast have an effect on the racing, but perhaps not as pronounced an effect as we anticipated last time out, and we'll have to wonder if it does kick in today. But without further ado, qualifying is underway then at 20 minutes. All our drivers will be making their way out of the pit lane as soon as possible, and our first driver to make the way on out, of course, is Jamie Doble in the number 1 car, of course wearing the number 1 because he was our champion for Season 1 in the Pro Class, and he was given the option to wear the number 1 on the car, and he does so with pride as he makes his way up towards turn number 2. And as he comes through the right-hander here, he'll be looking to get himself set up as best as humanly possible. But indeed, we have a lot of drivers in attendance today. It is going to be an absolutely packed field, it has to be said, and therefore the change will be on all of our drivers to do their utmost in order to keep it smart and on the narrow, as we do look to Philip Bruberg here in the bright esports Elantra. And well, the Bruberg brothers not perhaps having the results they've wanted so far this season, but they've been enjoying the racing all the same. That's something we can definitely say, as we do see Bruberg making his way here all the way down and into turn number 4, and we'll ride on board with some of our drivers once they've had the opportunity to get the front tyres up to temperature, so after a couple of laps, because of course with these TCR racing machines, the front tyres, even though they do all the hard work, they do normally take quite a period of time in order to get up to ideal temperature. It's normally the third or the fourth flying lap that really sees our drivers go at the maximum possible pace, where they've got the confidence in the car and the grip available to them. As we see Philip Bruberg making his way through turn number 6 and up towards the second chicane, we do look to what is Reese Watt. Meanwhile, of course, the big name in the Pro Class at the moment, the triple winner in Spain, after going into the round looking very fast in practice and not quite sure where it all came from in terms of the pace, well, then he must have had something absolutely special for breakfast, because he was absolutely flying in Spain and nobody could hold him down. But as they all make the way now, Constantina up towards what is turn at number 8, you'll notice a lot of our drivers now is trying to back off or slot themselves into the order, and this is where the change comes at Circuit Zolder, where it's the alternate of the Grand Prix out. It's only a change of 1 corner in terms of how much speed can be taken into the corner, but otherwise you can see on the circuit map there just how concertina together all of our drivers are at the moment. They'll look to spread out as much as possible, and in a 20-minute qualifying session everybody should theoretically be able to give one another sufficient space. But of course the problem is, in qualifying you want to be getting around there as soon as possible, because you want more and more time to deliver your laps. You do not want to be held up, and you don't want to lose every available second to put your laps in, but some drivers may just have to be a little bit more patient by comparison with others. As we do see here, Garner making his way onto his first flying lap. We look to Ian Manners here as he comes down into the braking zone in the Hyundai Veloster in the 52 car, and as Manners makes his way on through the right hand there. Just to give you a quick recap in terms of how you can tell who is Pro-Am and who is Pro, you'll notice that on the time tell on the left hand side of your screen, and also you'll see it in the bottom left hand corner when we're watching our drivers in the race conditions, you'll notice that they have a little coloured sash next to their name. Green means they're a Pro, meanwhile purple pink means they are a Pro-Am, and that's how you can tell who's in which class, and we'll keep you up to date with all the class position as we proceed through the evening. Now, as we do see here, Ian Manners making his way onto his first flying lap. Everybody now onto a flying lap, I do believe. We may have a couple of drivers still in the pit lane looking to get themselves set, but for the most part, it does seem as though we have most of our drivers making their way around. I think we've got in excess of 30 drivers here today. It is an absolutely packed field, it must be said. And Jamie Doble right now making his way down towards turn at number 10, coming to the end of his first flying lap. And in terms of that run of form, we started off by saying that the Honda Civic Type R really has been the go-to car this season so far. In terms of out of 2 rounds so far, it has been the dominant car in terms of race pace, and even in qualifying we have seen the Honda Civic run very strongly as Dory makes his way into turn number 1 as he comes on through here, where he's going to put another lap on the board, and that lap was in valid by the looks of things, unless we're very much mistaken, because we are now 3.5 minutes into the session. Indeed, Ahmed Ali coming through the first valid lap of this qualifying session, and the iRacing driver takes the initial pace, but Mikey Doble immediately dethroning him there by almost a second. And in terms of the other cars available, well, Kieran Sharp here in the Elantra, and coming on to our next car choice, we reckon the Elantra could be quite strong here, given the fact it is a very strong one-lap pace car. The only downside of the Elantra is it's very aggressive on that front tyre wear, and particularly on a warm track surface, the car can really fall away in terms of those front tyres over the duration of the race. And we'd expect it's in the last couple of laps of the race that's where the Elantra will really start to feel the pinch, albeit with the success ballast being applied to it as well of what is that 50 kilograms, it's only going to become more prominent. Meanwhile then, the car that could potentially take advantage of this is the Veloster, the Honda Veloster, with 25 kilograms of success ballast, in the fact this is the jack of all trades car, whereby it doesn't really have one thing it excels at other than low gear acceleration, so second and third gears where it really shines on, but therefore because it's a jack of all trades, master of none, it could do quite well here given the variability of this circuit, albeit this is a bit of a handling circuit, the Honda Civic Type R being the handling car within the touring car racing class. So now I hear some of you asking, but what about the Audi RS3? And I hear you. Well, the Audi RS3 is perhaps the car that's made more for the higher gears, and indeed the race pace on circuits which are much faster and more flying by comparison. And that's the one thing that Circuit Zolder is not necessarily, is fast flying. It flows, it most definitely does, and it does have quite a few good connectors in terms of corners, but here it's a very corner-centric circuit in terms of heavy braking zones, going through chicanes, getting the weight distribution of the car sorted out, getting it pointed in a new direction. And it's not saying the Audi struggles at, but what it does struggle at by comparison is gear selection in the lower speed corners, where you typically see the Audi drivers having to use one gear higher compared to their peers, for the simple reason that the gear ratios of the car are optimized for the higher gears rather than the lower gears, so it's very snappy on the gearbox, and because it's so snappy it means it gets a lot of front wheel spin if you try to power out of a corner in second gear rather than third gear. And wheel spin is not ideal when you're trying to get the power down and also take a corner in a front engine front wheel drive car, because of course the front wheels do all the work, both the turning and also the power deployment, and the rear tyres by comparison get a quite easy job of it. So we are expecting the Honda to be quite strong here today, but watch out for the Elantras and the Velosters. The Audis we'll have to keep our eyes on as well. You never know, they may be able to thread the needle in the field. And right now, speaking of threading the needle, Paul Scott here on fire and on full caliber as he makes his way into turn number 4. And right now, the current provisional Pro-Am pole sitter as he makes his way down towards the Kleiner chicane. But of course, there's plenty of time to go, still 14 minutes to go, and he won't be taking anything for granted. None of our drivers will, as he heads into the Kleiner chicane. Over the curbs he goes there. You can see they clatter their way over the curbs to an extent. Push them too hard, however, and they'll get a track limits warning from an independent race director, and also they may start to pick up significant suspension damage. But as he comes in to Lermanbach corner, or the turn at 7 chicane, making his way on through at the right-left-right combination before coming onto the second right in the final sequence, looking very smooth at the moment. And that's the thing about Paul Scott, when he does get his head down and really starts to build that pace in the Audi RS3, he looks unstoppable, and I think he could be one of the dark horses here today in the Pro-Am class. We've seen it has been the show of Reese Watt, and also in round number 1 it was the show of Michael Lees and Martin Shirley, but both of them in the pro class and still in the pro class going in tonight. I think Paul Scott could have a major advantage, but we have to wait and see who else starts to thread their way into the field. And speaking of that, well, Matthew Addy goes on to provisional pole there, P9 overall in the Pro-Am class in the Veloster there, so it's not just going to be about Paul Scott, as Joseph Doble moves up to P11 overall, P2 in the Pro-Am class. So the times are coming in, a lot of drivers running quite a bit of fuel in the car and looking to try and find that lap time. A lot of rubber being laid down as well, and as we said earlier, we have got in excess of 30 cars in attendance today, and what that will effectively mean is rubber will be being laid down by the dozen as our drivers continue in this qualifying session. But speaking of continuing this qualifying session, we do look further afield towards the end of the current lap, and we look to Jonathan Collins here, who gets his way down towards turn number 8 right now in the black orange NXTGEN Racing Honda Civic Type R, and as he makes his way through turn at number 9 here, through the mini chicane sequence, if you will, or the two kinks. It's not really a chicane at turn number 9, although that's debatable, of course. And as he comes down into turn number 10 here, fast line on 3, you can see there the weight of the car being shifted around with the little bumps and undulations of the road as he goes so close to the exit ball there and comes across the timeline. Was that a lap on the board for Jonathan Collins? It was only P24 so far for 37.275, but as we look from our prime driver who drifts his way into turn number 1, definitely trying to find that lap time. We now look to our current provisional pole sitter overall and in the Pro Class, and it is none other than Mikey Doble, who currently holds on to that pole position by 2 tenths. He makes his way into the pits and decides to put on a fresh pair of boots, no doubt. But as we look from him to Chris Daines here, Chris Daines right now navigating around one of the iRacing esports machines as Reese Watt jumps up to pro and provisional pole. P10 down to 34.827, dethroning, well, I was about to say dethroning, but he's just been dethroned by Matthew Addy, who responds and jumps up to P5. Goodness me, those times are still coming in quick. And as we look to Chris Daines making his way down towards the Kleiner chicane here, getting himself set up under brake, and we can definitely see the iRacing esports drivers, well, not Nick Clemens, but the other two on circuit, trying to navigate the way around one another. Meanwhile, Nick Clemens finding a bit of space on circuit and giving himself some breathing room, which I think he'll be very grateful for as he makes his way through turn number 4. Just a little bit wide there. Notice a little bit of understeer creeping as he tried to make it to the apex, but only by inches, if that, so it won't cost him too much time. But every inch matters when you're trying to absolutely deliver. I can tell you one driver right now is trying to absolutely deliver, and that is Adam Delmont, who's making his way through the fast chicane at Excite Racing, and we ride on board here with Adam Delmont as he takes us around for a flying lap of the Circuit Zolder alternate layout. He's making his way up towards turn number 1 then and heading onto the brakes, braking all the way down to 3rd gear, hitting his apex curve nicely and getting back on the throttle before making his way up towards turn number 2. Bringing the car over to the left, up to 4th gear, back on the brakes nice and early here. 3rd gear, you want to get a really early apex and then get straight on the throttle, power out and let the car roll out wide and bring it gradually through turn number 3. We'll straight line it up towards the outside of the road here for turn 4. Looking to the escape road on the left hand side, trail braking in down from 4th gear. Will he drop down to 3rd? No, he stays in 4th in order to settle the car and be able to put the throttle down a bit more aggressively. And as he makes his way up towards turn number 5, that's the first half of the lap complete with the Kleiner chicane connecting the 2 halves of the lap. Now braking about 75 metres for the Kleiner chicane, straight line in between the 2 of them then, nicely done, not unsettling the car at all as he makes his way up the hill and down into the undulation of what is the turn 6 kink before staying over to the left here for braking into the turn 7 chicane. Onto the brakes at 100 metres as the road straightens out and coming down to 2nd, down to 1st, he transitions between the 2 curbs, and as he comes through at the latter half now of turn 7, through the double right, flat out here through the final part of turn 7, now making his way up towards turn number 8. Coming through the left-hand kink here and onto the brakes he'll go very shortly at the 100-metre board, in fact just after it at 80 metres, and coming all the way down to 1st, get back on the power as soon as possible. You have to use that apex curve to turn the car, and as he powers between the 2 connecting apexes of the turn 9, he now makes his way up towards the final corner. And normally if it's the Grand Prix lap, they'd be braking at the 100-metre board. Oh, he'll be dabbing the brakes down to 4th gear. It's a quick downshift, but now he's fully committed on the throttle here as he powers on through, and the car just misses the wall. Goodness me, that was close. And well, you could see they put one wheel on the grass. It was fast though, and he's jumped all the way out to P6 then. Adam Delmont for Excite Racing giving us an exciting lap, if you don't mind the pun. It wasn't intended, but that could have been something else entirely if he clipped the wall there. I think his heart might have been in his mouth a little bit. That was incredibly close to hitting the wall, but still, that's what you've got to do to go fast. And immediately Chris Daines now goes even faster than everybody with a 33.613. The Verano Motorsport driver is here to play today. And right now, absolutely flying as he makes his way through turn 2 and into 3. But as he comes on through, I wonder if he has got a little bit more in the tank or whether that is the best he can achieve. He has gone purple in what is sector 2, and he has set personal best in sectors 1 and 4. But sector 3 seems to be eluding him a little bit in terms of that improvement margin. Meanwhile, Wayne Douglas holds the purple sector 1 by comparison as he makes his way on down. And well, Kate Eames, I agree with you, that was a Code Brown moment for Adam Delmont. But again, if he saved it up to that 1 lap and he's made it happen, he's definitely made it count as a result. As meanwhile we look to Gavin Gardner here, and of course that reference lap was in the Honda Civic Type R, and Gavin Gardner right now in the Audi RS3, our highest placed Audi at this point in time with 8 minutes to go. And as he comes up towards turn number 8 right now, the thing about Gavin Gardner, which we absolutely love about his approach to these races, you can never count him out when he goes racing in the NXTCC series. We saw it in season 1, of course. He was our runner-up in the overall and pro classifications, runner-up to Jamie Dory in a championship battle that went all the way down to the wire, albeit in the season finale he had no luck compared to Jamie Dory, who seemed to have all the luck and also the momentum go his way. To be fair, Jamie Dory was not just lucky to win, he also was deserved champion, but it would have been deserved of either of them. But of course, in the season finale, Gardner was lacking all the luck. It just did not seem to work out and nothing seemed to come together. But still, not to be demotivated by that, he's come back and bounced back into season 2, and whilst the Audi has not been perhaps the car that's been the strongest at the moment, he is trying to keep it inside the top 10 and make sure it has a place in the top 10, and right now he is effective P10 in the Pro Class if you exclude Matthew Addy then P9 overall, the pro and pole sitter. We can see Gianni Peroni there jumps up to P2 on a 33.756, 1.5 tenths behind fellow teammate Chris Dane. So it is going to be a Verano Motorsport lockout if things finish as they are in this qualifying session, as Wayne Douglas sets a 33.971, does not improve, but it's definitely getting tighter and tighter up towards those front two rows at the moment. The Verano Motorsport definitely going for gold here in qualifying, as meanwhile, as we look to Reese Watt here, well, right now not quite on the pace of Addy, alternatively Jones, and in fact we see Luke Jones here making his way on through, fellow teammate of course to Reese Watt for JWM Sport Team, or JW Motorsports, as they make the way on around here. But of course it's not just about one driver in the team, it is the team effort, and well, I think JW Motorsports will definitely have that in mind, as we see here Jones making his way through turn number 4, looking quite compact at this time, and again the Honda looking quite firm in its position on the circuit. But meanwhile, we look to Daniel Holmer here, making his way across the timeline, and we ride on board with the Bright Esports driver as he takes us around for another flying lap here, but this time it's in the Elantra N, and as he makes his way into turn number 1, he jumps all the way up to P6 overall. That was an absolute flyer of a qualifying. That's provisional pole now in the Pro class, and can Daniel Holmer find even more time out there as he makes his way through 2 and into 3, coming on through in 4th gear at the moment. Of course, the Elantra, the one-lap magic car, as he comes onto the brakes, coming down to 3rd. Then you notice the difference in the lap between Delman and Holmer. We're coming down to 3rd gear, made the car rotating more aggressively into turn 4, but he's also had to reset the car as he's got back on the power because that rear started to lift. But making his way down into the chicane, now going really late there, braking at 55 metres and absolutely hounding it over the curves. Well, I think if I was sat in the back of this car right now, I'd need spinal surgery after that one. And as he comes charging through turn number 6 and up towards the chicane of 7, onto the brakes here, coming all the way down to 2nd gear, straight line in between the two of them. Of course, our drivers want to try and cut as much, I should say, of the chicane as much as they can, but at the same time they can't afford to cut too much, because otherwise they'll get a finger wagging and a warning from our race director. But as he makes his way down to turn 8 right now in 5th gear, all the way down the gearbox, he'll come when he drops to first. Yes, he does indeed. Goes a little bit deep, then you'll notice by overextending the curve of turn number 8, he's actually upset his run into 9 there. He's not able to carry as much speed in the run up towards turn number 10. Now he's got to try and make it all up from this point, but taking a bit of grass there as well. And I think Holmer, after an absolute flyer of a lap to take P6, has had to really reset the clock here, but makes his way through the chicane to complete the lap. But it's by no means as fast as his previous best, albeit he did improve in subsectors 2 and 3. So I think Daniel Holmer's got an even faster lap at his fingertips. He's just got to hook it up and put it together. But as we jump out of the car and look to mix on the exterior cameras here, we can see, well, the other Elantra's behind, getting it slightly wrong there, making their way through turn number 1. We're just trying to understand who that is. Meanwhile, speaking of Hyundais, here is Michael Lees, the pro driver at the moment, making his way down in towards turn number 7 as he comes through the left-hander. And well, with 4 minutes left on the clock at the moment, it's definitely looking as though in the Pro-Am class, Daniel Holmer has put down a huge marker of 2.5 tenths to Matthew Addy. We should point out, if your eyes do not think you're deceiving you, well, it is correct in the fact that from P1 through to P15 at the moment, it is 1.5, well, it's 1 second and half a tenth that separates our top 15, and if you want to be within a second, it is the top 14. That's how close this field is currently as our drivers make the way on around and through. But as we do see Nick Clearance improve on the time tower there to a 33.96, that moves him up to P4 overall. And in the pro class, we look here to Michael Lees, who makes his way across the timeline down towards turn number 1. He'll go. Does Lees improve on this lap compared to his previous best? He comes on through. He does. He jumps up to P11, and Philip Bruberg jumps up to P17. So Lees definitely having something in the tank. Meanwhile, Nigel Stock coming to the timeline as he makes his way through the turn 10 chicane. They're absolutely devilishly quick through there, and as he comes across the line, what's it going to be? The opening half of the lap was very strong, currently P20. Will he jump up at all? And no, he will not. That was an invalid lap. It will not count, and therefore he will remain P18 class, P20 overall. It's just behind. That's Mark Sykes dipping a toe wide coming through turn number 1, and in fact having to put it on the grass there. I think he's decided to make his way to the pits, but sliding his way on the gravel there, and in fact he might just be coming back onto the circuit. And I think he might have outbroken himself into turn number 2. But Mark Sykes currently P10 in class, P22 overall. And to be fair, Mark has typically been battling inside the midfield of the Pro-Am class, and we look forward to seeing how he gets on tonight. But definitely when I had the chance to catch up with him in the build-up to tonight in the pit lane, he was saying he wasn't expecting too much from tonight. He's just waiting to see how others would get on, but he's expected it to be a difficult one given the nature of the circuit and how it really pushes you as a driver to nail every apex perfectly each and every time. But meanwhile, looking a bit further down the field and one driver yet to set a lap. Sam Smith here, a pro driver, the only driver without a time on the board out of our 31 drivers in attendance, and Smith at iRacing Esports has got it all to do here at the last hour. Given the fact he's got less than 2 minutes, he will have overtime, of course, whereby for drivers on a lap when we hit the 20-minute mark on the clock, they are allowed to finish that lap and it can count. But Sam Smith definitely leaving it all in reserve here, and does he know something we do not in terms of that he's going to have the ultimate pace right at the end? Well, we would expect that with all the rubber being laid down, of course the circuit's going to be in its prime right at the end of the qualifying session, but has Smith left it all too late to a gamble? We'll wait and find out as he makes his way on through turn number 7 through the 4 extension and heading up towards 8 now, and as he comes through, definitely looking quite compact in terms of the approach to the corners here. It does look as though the car's dialed in as Daniel Holmer jumps up to P2 overall, and that is prime pole going further and further up the timing standings as we see there Smith making his way through turn number 8, and Holmer is absolutely on a tear right now as Mikey Doble jumps up into provisional pole overall with a 33.605. It's only 7 thousandths faster than Chris Daines' lap, but it's enough as Daines responds, going almost 3/10 faster, and right now Chris Daines seems to be the man on the mission, as meanwhile can Smith put a time on the board? He's only got one more lap now as he goes across the timeline. As he comes into turn number 1, it's another lap that has not counted for Smith. It is not working out for him today at all, but meanwhile Chris Daines is absolutely flying as he heads through turn number 4, and can this be his maiden pole position of the season, or will he be denied right at the death? Well, as we wait to find out about that, we would look to Paul Scott here, who at one point was right up in terms of the timings, and we get to ride on board with the Audi RS3 driver as he heads across the timeline and onto one final qualifying lap as he comes down into turn number 1. Now as he comes on down here, what you'll notice with the Audi, the difference, look at the gearing in the bottom right hand corner. If you want to full on board his dashboard, it's on the bottom left hand side, and you'll notice it's going to be much higher gears by comparison with the other cars available to our drivers in the touring car racing class, whereby coming through turns 1 and 2, typically our drivers will be in 3rd gear or 2nd gear, whereas Scott's had to take the Audi in 4th gear because of the gearing of the car. But as he makes his way into turn number 4 here, staying in 4th gear, gets really good traction in 4th gear coming through the right-hander as he now makes his way in the run up towards the blinder chicane and going onto the charge here and getting ready to go onto the brakes, going onto the anchors all the way down to 4th, in fact only to 4th gear, and goes a bit deep as a result. Of course, he does not have the engine braking available when he can do additional downshifts, and as he comes through turn number 6 here, it's definitely a nice lap so far, but it's one that is on edge as well as he heads into the turn 7 chicane. Straight line between the two, and this is where the Audi will bog down by comparison because he's got additional gear shifts to worry about if he goes from 3rd back up to 4th. You saw there almost hitting the rev limiter for a brief moment from 3rd to 4th transition, and as he comes up towards turn number 8 right now, heading into that braking zone, the right-hander coming on and through on the brakes, down to 3rd gear, but not venturing anywhere near 2nd, and again having to go very low in the rev range in 3rd gear, and it does cost him the time as he makes the run up towards turn number 10, and in the charge he goes at the moment. And the lap, in terms of whether he's improving or not, he's improved in the first half a lap. Can he improve in the latter half a lap as he comes through the fast chicane? We'll give it his all as he comes to the timeline, and what's it going to be as he makes his way on across for Paul Scott? He stays to the left there to shorten the run to the line. He improves to P21 overall, P9 in class. Ian Manners crosses the line. He jumps all the way up to P17 overall, P5 in the prime class. We've still got a couple more drivers making their way on around. We've got Matt Emmons a little bit slow coming out to turn at number 9. I think he may have had a mistake there and he's decided to back it off and make his way into the pit lane. Indeed, he's straight lining on there, so his lap is over. I think this is qualifying complete, ladies and gentlemen, and it is going to be Chris Daines who takes overall pole position for the first time this season and in the pro class, and meanwhile in the prime class, Daniel Holmer P4 overall. That is pro and pole by a margin in the end of what was half a second over Luke Jones, and Daniel Holmer absolutely nailing it. I think Reese Watt might be looking at the timing tower right now and thinking, what do I have to do to take the fight to Daniel Holmer? Well, the first thing he's got to do is not let it to motivate him, but focus on what lies ahead. And speaking of what lies ahead, it's time for the grid for race number 1. So they line up as follows. So race 1 of round number 3 of the Next Gen Racing Touring Car Championship Season 2. It is Chris Daines who takes pole position for Verano Motorsport by 1.5 tenths over Next Gen Racing Yellow's Wayne Douglas. Mikey Doble lines up on the second row, joined by pro and pole sitter Daniel Holmer for Bright Esports behind the NDA Honda Racing driver, with Gianni Peroni for Verano Motorsport being joined by Nick Clemens from iRacing Esports on the third row. Next, Jamie Dory and Adam Delmont on row at number 4, with Will Redford and Adam McNally there on the 5th row, completing the top 10. Luke Jones there. P2 in the Prime class will start P11 on our 6th row, joined by Kieran Sharp from the Sim Racing Collective, and behind them on the 7th row will be Michael Lisa and Matthew Addy. Reese Watt and Gavin Garner line up P15, P16, with Gavin Garner having a difficult qualifying session. He'll have it all to do in the races, with Ian Manners and Philip Bruberg line up P17, P18 on the 9th row. And it'll be Joseph Doble and Elwin Sykes who complete the top 20 on the 10th row of the grid, the two Pro-Ams there, with the CSA Team 3 driver Elwin Sykes having his strongest qualifying session of the season so far. Then on the 11th row we have the Pro-Am pair of Nigel Stock and Paul Scott, with the 52 Silver Crest Racing driver gradually making his way up the field in qualifying little by little. And then we have Alan McCain and Isaac Doble on row number 12. Behind them on row 13, it will be Mark Sykes and Tom Delaney, and they will be followed up on row number 14 by Matt Evans and Daniel Weston. And on row 15, Jonathan Collins and Liam Silkstone, with Sam Smith completing our qualifying order there, P31, and not to get a lap in, a valid lap, and he's got it all to do from the back of the field in the Pro iRace esports machine. But that is how our 31 drivers all line up on the grid, and we'll be getting ready to go racing very shortly, ladies and gentlemen. But the big question is, as we look down to the grid, in fact we're obscured by the grandstand there, but we do have another camera angle, is can Verano Motorsports' Chris Daines get the run off the line and make it into turn number 1 and try a breakaway? Of course, we're typically seeing whoever starts on pole, if they can hold the lead into turn number 1, they are able to make the breakaway. Or will this man to the left of him, from our perspective to the right of him in the car, find a way to jump ahead? Will we await the lights? There's 1 red light, 2 red lights, 3 red lights, 4 red lights, 5 red lights.
Green flag, green flag.
And it's lights out and away we go for race number 1 here at Circuit Zolder. And as they charge down towards turn number 1, Chris Daines gets a good start. There's quite the battle further back in the field in the primes, but as they come into the opening corner, Wayne Douglas looks to the inside. Daniel Holman, meanwhile, being swamped here as he looks to make his way past Mikey Doble on the outside into turn 1. But now he's got to try and hold the inside into turn number 2. As you'll notice that Adam Delwin a bit further back there, coming into the crunch behind was the combination of Gianni Brennan and Jamie Dory, who make it 2x2 as they come roaring through turns 2 and 3. And as they make the way up towards 4, we can see that Dory up the inside of Prone here, who backs out and coming in hot on the brakes, and Nick Clibbins as we get a bit of obscurity there, but as they make the way out of turn number 4, Clibbins here having another strong start, but can he maintain it in the run down towards turn number 5? And this is where it's going to get tight on the brakes as they all make the way into the Kleiner chicane. 2x2, hurrah, hurrah, they come, and as they make the way onto the brakes there, we can see a little bit up the inside there between Dory and Redford, but as they make the way on through, Reese Watt as well getting stuck in versus Michael Lees, and Gavin Garner just ahead of him battling with also Luke Jones, and Luke Jones has been passed by Matthew Addy at the start of this race as they make the way into turn 6 into 7. Luke Jones having to go defensive there versus Gavin Garner. We've got a couple of cars off there at turn 7. Gavin Garner being given the elbow out, and I think there's been a bit of contact from behind as well as they all make the way through. There's a car going loose there, and it's a disaster for Luke Jones from JW Motorsport, who you saw cutting across the camera then going off circuit. He's been knocked by somebody as they make the way over and down the brow in towards turn number 8, but as they come charging down, we look a bit further back here to Isaac Doble, who goes battling with Daniel Weston as he tries to find a way out the inside here, but can't quite find it for NDA Honda Racing as he has to wait behind. And further behind them, Alan McCain right now also hot on the brakes here, battling side by side with Liam Silkstone. Silkstone on the outside coming out of turn 8 into 9 they go. He has to back out there, McCain, as they come on through. But meanwhile, what has happened to Chris Daines? Well, Chris Daines going very slowly on the start finish straight. I think that's a slowdown of some description, because we're not hearing that he's been in contact with the wall necessarily, but something has gone wrong for Chris Daines. He's dropped down to P5 from the lead of the race. So after 1 lap turned in a little bit of drama on the opening lap, it is Wayne Douglas who leads ahead of Mikey Doble in P2, followed up by then Daniel Holman P3, your Pro-Am leader who we see here, chased after the top 2. There's Gianni Peroni in P4, ahead of teammate Chris Daines Verano Motorsport in P5, Jamie Dory P6, keeping on the pack, followed by Will Redford P7, and then we have Adam Delwin in P8, a little bit further behind him, followed up by Kieran Sharp in P9, and Adam Manali who completes the top 10. Nick Clemens best of the rest, P11 right now, being hounded by the Pro-Am driver or in P2 in class, and that is Matthew Addy P12 as they make the way down towards turn number 5 once more. But as they come down, we look to Reese Watt here, who battles side by side with Ian Manners and also Philip Bruberg here, finding their way almost in a 2x2 situation. They all safely navigate through and decide to cut the differences. They make the way up the hill and into turn number 6 once again. They come roaring on down into left-hander and onto the brakes they go here. Will there be any change this time? I don't think so. I think now they've all calmed down to an extent as they make the way on through, and as they change on through the chicane sequence, you can see no change between the drivers right now. They all stay relatively stationary to one another, but meanwhile further up the road, Chris Daines has found his way past Gianni Peroni, and I think they swap places, the two Verano Motorsport drivers. I think there's a bit of hope that Chris Daines can go hunting after Daniel Holmer and then Mikey Doble and also Wayne Douglas. But as they all come through on the brakes once again, right now everybody's settling down for a brief moment. A bit of the madness has worn off, and then they'll be looking to go on the offensive later on in the racing. And speaking of trying to go on the offensive here, well, Gianni Peroni has got pressure building from behind, and that is Jamie Dory, who is looking to try and find a move on the Verano Motorsport Elantra driver as they come through turn 1 into 2. But as he makes his way into the right-hander shortly, you'll notice no change at the moment other than just simply staying on his line, not having to worry too much. Meanwhile, Nick Clibbins finds his way past Adam McNally as we're to understand it, as Adam McNally's had a bit of a moment. In fact, going 2 by 2 here with what is there Matthew Addy trying to hold on to the overall position, but Matthew Addy making his way on around, and as they come through turn 3 up into 4, well, Adam McNally loses the place. I think it was a mistake at turn number 1. We are just trying to find out confirmation. It wasn't off track at turn number 1 that has cost Adam McNally very dearly, as they now make their way down towards turn number 5 once again. But further back we see Luke Jones here on the outside battling with Daniel West. Of course, Luke Jones losing out massively on the opening lap at turn number 7, where he was sent off at the chicane twice effectively, and sent off once, sent off again. But as he tugs in behind right now, Daniel Weston, will he look for the move? No, he thinks about it, but he thinks twice about it and decides it's not worth it at this time, as they make the way through the chicane and up the hill they go. But coming charging on through here into the chicane, where it all went wrong for Luke Jones only a couple of laps ago, we take a look back at exactly what happened. So in the run down here, looking at Luke Jones in particular, we actually looked at the blimp, well, not the blimp camera there, that's not ideal. We run on board with Luke Jones, and well, you see outbroke himself and then straight lined across the curb, and as he tries to bring the car back on the grass, and the car just had no grip whatsoever, and the car went wide. But I think there was a bit more to it than that, and Nick Clibbins was a bit further up the road. Maybe that'll tell us the initial story here as they all came through, and Clibbins being made to drift through there and surviving it, and well, then going across the grass, and that's why he dropped a couple of places. But Nick Clibbins finally putting to bed the fact that he's been caught up in some major incidents at the start of these races. Meanwhile, further back we can see there a bit of contact. Elwin Sykes been involved in the mix, and that caused a bit of a trigger off for a number of drivers, including Thomas Delaney. So a number of drivers really having a difficult time of it. But as we return to the live pictures now, we can see that whilst they may have had a difficult start to the race, still battling plenty here as we see 3 wide into turn 2. Oh, goodness me! And a bit of contact there between Weston and Jones there being given the elbow out, and Liam Silkstone by comparison almost obliging, albeit I don't think he meant to give the place to Daniel Weston, but I think Weston saw the space and took it and said, I want 2 of you, thanks, not just the one. And as they make their way into turn number 4 on the live pitches now, they're battling for P22 overall, what is effectively P11 in the prime class, and Silkstone's not done with it here as the Excite Racing driver looks down the outside. He's not going to find it here into turn number 5, but definitely trying to put the pressure on as they make their way in to the Kleiner chicane. You can see all 3 drivers here in close succession, all battling hard for position. Meanwhile, speaking of battling hard for position, and particularly to battle to be on the overall podium today, we look up to P3 driver and your Pro-Am leader at the moment, and that is Daniel Holmer, as he continues to be under pressure from Chris Daines. And I think the Bright Esports driver, whilst he's definitely got a win on the cards here if he plays it right, he's also looking at an overall podium, and that will be the first overall podium we'll see this season for a Pro-Am driver, and that would be a huge statement. But meanwhile, huge statements aside, Alan McCain pointing in the wrong direction, but as we see him in the background, Silkstone trying to go around the outside here of Jones. It's going to be side by side all the way through 9 up towards 10 here, and there's only going to be one outcome that's going to be inevitable, and that is someone's got to back out, and you can see immediately Jones there backing out in the run up towards turn number 10. They know they can't go too wide through there. It requires a huge amount of commitment to do so, and as they come through turn number 10, Liam Silkstone holds the position, but I think there was more to the story than just what we saw there, and we'll try and find out exactly what happened very shortly for you as they come onto the brakes here, and Jones looks up the inside. He goes all in on the brakes. Of course, the Honda very strong on the brakes, but in return he's compromised his line, and as they make the way in towards turn number 2, Silkstone coming back on the inside of him here. Side by side they go, and as they coming out the corners, also further battling up the road between Joseph Doble and Philip Bruberg, and also Reese Watt. So it is all kicking off, but we're staying here with this battle right now, and Jones finally gets ahead of Liam Silkstone. Meanwhile, we can see here Reese Watt going very slow. I think Reese Watt's had an off track at turn number 4, and Paul Scott jumps up. In fact, we have had Joseph Doble, Philip Bruberg, Ian Manners and Isaac Doble all jump ahead of him as they now make the way in the run down through turn number 6. But it is definitely the day of the primes fighting one another intensely, as meanwhile we look up to Ian Manners Manners. Oh my goodness, and Ian Manners into the wall straight on at turn number 7. Well, I think there's a bit more to it than meets the eye there, but what on earth happened to Ian Manners, we're not sure. As meanwhile, Elwin Sykes comes on through the aftermath of the incident, but Manners definitely having to jump to the pits there, having to be towed to the pits, given the damage he's picked up, and that will not do, not at all. Meanwhile, speaking of a driver under pressure right now, as Elwin Sykes tries to put pressure onto Liam Silkstone, looks up the inside, it goes to the move under braking, and the CSA Team 3 driver definitely trying to make it count, but goes a bit deep, but he gets it done. We look up to Wayne Douglas here, your race leader overall and pro leader at the moment, and he's trying to hold off Mikey Doble behind. As the Next Gen Racing yellow driver battles the NDA Honda Racing driver as they come through turn number 4. But for Wayne Douglas, of course, the ace may be up his sleeve, given the fact he qualified so strongly throughout the session, putting it on the front row alongside Chris Daines in P2. But of course, now it's race time where the pressure's on in terms of defending. And if we know anything about Mikey Doble, is he loves the challenge of being able to chase down another driver as they make their way into turn number 6. We're coming on down here, not quite the halfway point of the race yet. And as they make their way into turn number 7, we look to Michael Lees here from Excite Racing, who right now is behind. Well, it's Adam McNally who gets it very wrong at the chicane. The car bounces once, it bounces twice, goes to the gravel and comes back onto the asphalt. And well, Adam McNally there, I think, definitely had one of those moments where he's used up one of his 9 lives, because that could have been curtains. But meanwhile, whilst that has all occurred, we see here three-way battle for what is P17. Overall P11, sorry P6 I should say, in the Pro-Am class, and it's Weston ahead of Collins and also Luke Jones. Collins and Jones going side by side into turn 7. Who's going to back out? I think Collins is going to be made to here as we ride on board with the Next Gen Racing blue driver as he looks to try and come on back versus Jones. He can't quite find it at the moment, as we're hearing that Daniel Holmer's fallen a long way down the order. We'll try and find out what exactly has happened to Daniel Holmer shortly, but he's dropped all the way down to P8. But we're riding on board with P19 driver running P8 in the Pro-Am class of Jonathan Collins. He tries to fight his way back past Luke Jones after being muscled out by Jones in the run to turn number 7. But as they make their way down towards turn number 10, looks like right now things are stabilising a little bit as they make their way into the fast chicane coming on through here. And of course, it's all about trying to carry as much speed behind the driver in front as Collins almost loses the rear of the car, drifting, and that's going to cost him a significant amount of the run as he goes on to the next lap. But as they come down the start-finish straight, you can see Elwin Sykes creeping up a little bit closer behind as the Audi continues to crusade its way up through the field, and the CSA Team 3 driver from South Africa doing everything in his power to try and find a place inside the top 5 in the Pro-Am class. He's currently P9 in class, but you can see P8 through to P6 in front of him, and then P5 owned by Paul Scott at the moment in the Audi RS3 as well, so he knows it's possible. And as he makes his way on through, and as we do look a little bit further up the order, we do look to Daniel Holmer here, who had a drop all the way down the order only moments ago, and let's find out exactly what happened as he was running at the time in P4. We're battling side by side with Chris Daines there, and Will Holmer, I think, trying to battle hard into the chicane and losing out dramatically, and he could have lost out a lot more if he'd made contact with the wall, and that's how all the pros came roaring on through as we return to the live pictures. But meanwhile, we look to Will Redford here, who right now is continuing to charge after. Where's the drivers in front, albeit they've got a driver on the apex there, and Will Redford having to go straight across the gravel, and that's because of McCain being on the apex at turn number 10, and well, he had to really judge that one carefully, but somehow making the jump and making it stick. But Adam Delmont's going to go up the inside here and look for the move for what is P6 in the Pro class as they come on through the left-hander, and as they make their way up towards turn number 2, going through the right-hander at the moment, definitely for Redford there, a near-miss moment as they come through, and up towards turn number 3 they go once again. But meanwhile, as they come charging on through, you can definitely see Jamie Dory, meanwhile, going straight off there. He's gone straight off the camera and all the way up to what is the gravel and almost into the wall there. And Jamie Dory having a bit of a nightmare moment as he rejoins. Will Kieran Sharp having to take a little bit of evasive manoeuvres there, a bit of a squeaky bum moment on the brakes as they make their way down towards turn number 5. But it does seem as though right now it is all continuing to kick off, albeit in the Pro class now, as Jamie Dory looks at a return move on Kieran Sharp as they come through turn number 5, but he can't find it at the moment. Instead, Adam Delmont under pressure here in return from Will Redford, and you can see Redford trying to look for the move here into the chicane. Can't quite find it at the moment, but it's going to be more in the run to turn 8 and into 10 when he'll try and get the move done as they come on charging through. But as he heads on through turn number 7 and up towards 8 they go. We can see just ahead of him Peroni looking comfortable right now in the Elantra as they head into the braking zone. Coming on through further down the hill, we're hearing that Weston has just made his way ahead of Luke Jones, but we continue to focus here on Delmont as they make the way out of turn 8 and 9. And we do hear your feedback there, Luke, in the YouTube chat, saying about a driver going from P7 to P5 but watching P19. We do try and cover everyone as best as possible with so much happening at the moment. We'll try and capture everything that does happen in replays if we can't. But as they make the way on through turn at number 10 and down towards 1, Delmont right now still under a bit of pressure from Redford, but also catching up to Peroni. And in fact, it does look as though the Rhino Motorsport driver here started to lose a little bit of pace and losing a bit of the edge in the race as they make the way down towards turn number 2. Perhaps there might be a move coming up from Delmont shortly, albeit the Rhino Motorsport driver here, he'll try and make sure it doesn't happen if he can help it. But as they come on through turn number 2 and make the way up towards 3 and 4, we look back to Luke Jones here, who right now ahead of Daniel Weston, only moments ago in the battle for P6 in the Pro-Am class, and now finding himself looking to go hunting after P6 once more as they make the way through the chicane, and a bit further behind them, Jonathan Collins and Elwyn Sykes. It's within arm's reach as they make the way in towards turn number 1, but onto the brakes they go, and you can see it there, Jones looking up the inside once more, and Weston opening the door up there. Meanwhile, it's all kicking off as Peroni goes wrong at turn number 5, and onwards he goes, and it does look like it's gone very, very wrong for Peroni. I wonder if there's been a knock on the curbing for Gianni Peroni, and we will try to find out, and in fact we will get the replay here of exactly what happened. Under brake, he's coming through and he's hit the curb too high, and the car's just gone straight to the wall, and as a result that is going to be a collapsed front left suspension, and that is what's led to him having to be towed to the pits. But that is a disaster for the Rhino Motorsport driver and not what he wanted at such a critical juncture in the race. Meanwhile, as we look to Kieran Sharp here coming through at turn number 8, currently running in at P7 overall, P6 in the Pro class, and coming on down towards turn number 10. Right now trying to keep Jamie Dory at bay by comparison as they make the way in to the turn 10 chicane. You can see they're both trying to slide in the way in initially, but no change at the moment as they make the way onto lap number 10. We are 2/3 into this race now. Will Redford setting the fastest lap of the race at 33.575 as they come down into turn number 1. And well, Jamie Dory definitely trying to turn things around after a difficult start to this race, and also an off track recently which saw him lose a multitude of places, and now trying to get his way back up inside the top 5 overall and also in the Pro class. But as they come through turn number 2, looking to hang on to the back right now of the Sim Racing Collective driver as they make the way towards turn number 4. We're coming on to the brakes here, and the figures you can see there, look at Kieran Sharp drifted his way under the brake, the rear brake bias of the car really caused the car to snap loose, and as they make the way down towards 5 here, Dory of course close, but he can't capitalise. He's looking at it, trying to put the pressure on as they come into the Klein chicane. But really, unless he gets the overspeed out for, can't look for the move now. What you're trying to do is look for the move potentially on the latter half of this lap as they make the way over the crest and down in towards turn number 7. But onto the brakes, they'll go shortly. Does he think about going up the inside? He's getting closer and closer under braking, but no way through at the moment. He's going to have to play the patience game here as they make the way out of the chicane, and now onwards to turn 8 they go. But whilst they make the way up towards turn number 8, we do look to Wayne Douglas, meanwhile the race leader here and the Pro class leader as well. With that, and the NXTGEN Racing yellow driver continues to be under pressure from Mikey Doble as we run on board the gearbox here of the NXTGEN Racing yellow Veloster. As we can see there, Doble really now starting to get closer and closer. Of course, these two have been oscillating back and forth in terms of gap for some time, but Mikey Doble definitely started to bear his fangs and close on him. As they head on to lap number 11 with now only 5 laps remaining. Mikey Doble sets the fastest lap of the race at 33.288, raising the bar a little bit higher in terms of that fastest lap and that bonus point available to our drivers. As they make the way into turn number 2, he looks up the inside, he goes all in almost, but in the end it's a feint, and Douglas does not fall victim to it as they make the way through 3, but that was very close. And well, you can imagine there, if Douglas had missed his braking point even slightly, Doble would have picked up the pieces, but Mikey Doble right now trying to tease out a move as they make the way through 4 and down towards 5, but as they come charging on through. You can see a bit further back, Chris Daines staying close, but not within arm's reach in terms of being able to get into that fight right now. Still 1 second behind as they make the way out of the chicane. And for Daines, it's all about waiting and watching and seeing if he can pick up the collateral as they make the way down towards turn number 7 again. But behind them a little bit further back, Adam Delmont right now holding on to P4 and being chased by Will Redford, who is closing a little bit lap after lap, albeit that last lap in fact dropping a 10th back. But I think Adam Delmont getting the hurry up call here as they make the way through turn number 7 in terms of he can hold on to P4 and potentially go hunting after the podium, given the leaders are starting to fight. And further behind them, well, Daniel Holmer right now behind Will Redford and running your Pro-Am leader at the moment as he makes his way down towards turn number 8 ahead of Kieran Sharp and also also Jamie Dory. But as they come under braking, we look to Wayne Douglas here as he continues to lead this race onwards towards the end of lap number 11. Not long to go for Wayne Douglas, but can he hold on? That will be the big question as they make their way on through. And meanwhile, we have had a bit of an incident further down the road, but we stay here with the leaders. It looks like Douglas is going to have to go defensive right now into turn 1. Doble looks to the outside here. Will he go for the cutback? He does consider the cutback, but Douglas parks it, and Mate Stowe will have to go all the way to the outside now. And as they come into turn number 2, it's going to be the run of the cutbacks here between the two drivers as they make their way out of turn number 2. Doble gets the tighter exit line, but Douglas covers him off just about as they come through 3 and up towards 4. And now Chris Daines starts to get into the mix here as we ride on board with the Rhino Motorsport drivers. They come through turn number 4, and of course, with the 3 of them being separated by only a half a second from nose to tail, the challenge will be for Doble. Can he make the move without giving Daines the opportunity to get into the fight, or will the Danishman find a way of creeping in and potentially taking the 2 places at once? Because of course, Chris Daines was your pole sitter going into this race, and as they make their way up the hill and down through turn number 3, we can see Douglas there right now really under pressure. Doble thinks about it again, not close enough to go for the full commitment into the inside, and Daines just closes on up as they make their way out of turn number 7. We're coming on up and through, and as they make the way up the hill and down towards turn number 8, well, Douglas right now definitely doing everything he can to push that velocity to its utmost as they make the way into the right-hander, and you can see there Doble having to squirm slightly under braking as getting very close and almost to contact now as they make the way up towards turn number 10, but as they come on out of what is there, the hairpin once more behind them, we've got Adam Delmont now closed up as well. Delmont has brought the gap down by 6/10 over the course of this lap with the scramble, and as they make their way through the fast chicane, not too many more laps to go. 3 more laps remaining here in this race number 1, and who out of these 3 will be your race winner? Could it even be Adam Delmont, or even behind him Will Redford, who are closing little by little? And to give you an idea, Delmont on that last lap 0.8 of a second faster. Redford by comparison, however, a little bit slower compared to Delmont, in fact quite significantly slower, and I think Redford may be starting to feel the pinch of those front tyres in terms of that success ballast. But as they make their way on out of turn 2 and up towards 3, the challenge of course will be here for all 3 drivers. Going to keep the tyres alive, as we can see there Doble taking a little bit of a sniff to the inside of turn number 4, and Wayne Douglas being made to react to it there, and Doble really trying to tease out a mistake from Douglas. Wants to get the move done, but he wants to get it done without having to fight too hard for it. And as they come down to 5, well, Doble's going to look to the inside there, but it's just as much covering off Daines as it was looking for the move, and Chris Daines definitely now starting to get an itch that he wants to scratch as they make the way in towards turn number 6. They're on the inside initially, but he'll be on the outside under braking. It's going to be side by side. Doble's not going to give up. They go too wide, and as they come on through a bit of a tap there, and Doble's made to go to the inside as they come on through turn number 7. Daines backs out there, but Adam Delmont now sees the opportunity on the inside. He squeezes on in, and Adam Delmont jumps up to P3, or does he, as they come over the crest and down towards turn number 8. On the brakes they go. Delmont on the inside, but can he make it work here as they come on through all the way in and fully committed? Daines made to go all the way around the houses. Redford's closing up, but the key thing about all this is it's enabled Douglas to break when Doble's being given a bit of a breather. As we can see Daines now on the inside coming down towards turn number 10. Contact between the 2 of them, and Delmont backs out as they come through the chicane, and Daines definitely trying to assert his authority, which is, no, I need this P3 and I'm going hunting, as they make the way out towards turn number 1. But I don't think Delmont's done yet as they make the way in towards turn 1, the penultimate lap, and as they make the way on through the apex, you can see Delmont definitely trying to get the run out the corner, but Daines making sure Delmont's got to go all the way round if he wants to get it done in turn number 2. As they come on through here and now making their way up towards turn number 3, we can tell you that further back in the Pro-Am class at the moment, Daniel Holman's still your leader in class, Matthew Addy's still P2, but that's Joseph Doble in P3. There's been a lot happening there further back as well, and well, to give you an idea, we did have a bit of a battle between Gavin Gunn and Philip Bruberg, which we will cut to very shortly. In fact, we can get a replay now, and this was in the battle at the time for P22, and well, Mark Sykes also in the fray, then Gavin Gunn trying to pick up the pieces, all a bit of contact there, and well, I think Bruberg not having the happiest amount of racing in coming through turns 1 and 2, and Gavin Garner trying to make it all the way out the inside. The pro driver trying to cut his way in amongst the Pro-Am drivers there and making the move count into turn number 4. But as they made their way on around, we look back to the leaders here and the live pictures as we can see. Well, P4 driver Adam Delmont right now finding a little bit of calm before the coming storm, I think, given that he's dropped away from Chris Daines for a brief moment. And, well, speaking of drivers dropping away, we do now have Isaac Doble, who is in P3 in the Prime class here, P13 overall, as he comes into the braking zone for the Turn 7 chicane. And, well, Joseph Doble has lost out considerably, and it was an off-track for Joseph Doble that has promoted both Isaac Doble and Paul Scott up places here. And what exactly happened? We'll take a look back. Well, this was Joseph Doble, only moments to go and get it wrong here. I can imagine, yep, the rear of the car coming loose a bit too soon, and it's a knock with the wall, and, well, that's where it all went wrong for Joseph Doble. White flags out, and with it, we're on the final lap as we return to live pictures here, and we look towards the front runners. As we can see, Delmont right now still battling for P4 as they come through the right-hander at turn 2 and 3, and as they make the way on around and up towards 4, we can see now Redford looking for the run on the inside. He may just have it all. Will he as they come through the corner? Well, he's going to go for it here, and Delmont goes to the gravel, and that is going to cost him dearly as they make the way on down in the long charge towards turn number 5. Meanwhile, you see Matthew Addy here battling side by side with Adam McNally, and this is for only overall position, but McNally gets on through and removes Addy from the top 10. But as we look from them back up to Redford versus Delmont here, you see Delmont trying to come on back as they make their way through turn number 6 and into 7. But Redford holds the position as Joseph Doble comes into the pit lane, and as they make their way through turn number 7, Redford covers it off, and there's contact there with Delmont, and Delmont comes on through, albeit the elbows out, and as they make their way out to turn up towards 8, well, Adam Delmont there, I think, will feel as though he's got it done, albeit the contact between the two of them may say it'll go to the stewards after. But as they come on through, when it's turn number 8, there's a return there from Redford, goes all in, where it's getting a bit nasty between the two of them. But meanwhile, one thing that's not nasty right now is the velocity of Wayne Douglas as it makes its way through the final corner. He's held off the offensive from Mikey Doble and Chris Daines, and he will take the win in race number 1 here at Circuit Zolder. Overall in the Pro class, head of Mikey Doble in P2, and it'll be Chris Daines who rounds off the overall on the Pro podium ahead of Will Redford. It'll then be Kieran Sharp who comes on through to take P5 ahead of Adam Delmont, and your Pro and winner Daniel Holmer, P7 overall in dominant fashion ahead of Jamie Dorey and Nick Clibbins. And then it'll be Adam McNally who rounds off the overall top 10 with Matthew Addy P2 in the Pro-Am class, P11 overall, Michael Lease there in P12, and then Isaac Doble bringing on home just ahead of Paul Scott, his podium, I believe it's his maiden podium of the season, as he crosses the line there, holding off Paul Scott to the line, P13, P14, the pair of them. And then Luke Jones will shortly come on through in what has been an absolutely up and down race of the JW Motorsport driver to bring home P15, but P5 in class for him, which will be a loss of points compared to what he could have had on the table. But I think as well he'll still be pleased with what he's brought home, as Jonathan Collins coming on home P16 there ahead of Liam Silkstone and Elwyn Sykes, P17, P18 at the 3 Prime drivers. And then we have a brief while before Nigel Stott will come on through to bring home P19 as he comes on across that timeline very shortly. And then it will be Gavin Garner who completes the top 20 there for Verano Motorsport, P11 in the Pro class ahead of Mark Sykes, P21, Philip Brubo, P22, and then, well, we will have Gianni Peroni who comes on through very shortly with Sam Smith crossing the line there, a lap down in P29. Gianni Peroni will come through to take home P23, and he will be the penultimate driver to finish on what is effectively the lead lap as we understand it. Although in fact I think Joseph Doble has already actually finished his race. I believe he has finished his race, albeit we may not have seen that as classified, but he will be P24. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, those are our finishers on the lead lap, and let's take you through the race results very shortly, subject to any stewards' inquiries. In fact, we're still waiting on those results. I think Joseph Doble does need to come round to our timing line, so in the meantime, we will look to our drivers making the way on through and into the pit lane, and it is Chris Daines here coming on in at the moment ahead of what is there Kieran Sharp, but all eyes will be on this man today of Wayne Douglas, who makes his way on in, having held off the charge of championship leader Mikey Doble. The pressure was on all the way from start to finish, but Douglas finding a way not to succumb to it. Chris Daines having that early moment, dropping him down and having to fight his way back onto the podium. Mikey Doble battling his way into P2, but couldn't find a way past Wayne Douglas. But it's Douglas who has taken the first win of the day, and well behind as they all make the way on through. Jonathan Collins here having a up and down race in terms of that P6 finish, but I think he'll be relatively pleased with that as we do look to some of our other drivers making the way into the pits. And we can see there, I do believe that is what is the JW Motorsport car coming in of, unless I'm mistaken, that's Luke Jones. And Luke Jones definitely not having the happiest race number 1. There's still 2 more races on the schedule. But as we now have the results coming on in, we can take you through those race results subject to any stewards' inquiries. So after race number 1 of round 3 of the NXTCC Season 2 here today at Circuit Zolder, Wayne Douglas taking the overall win in the end by half a second over Mikey Doble. The NXTGEN Racing Yellow driver picking up his maiden win of the series, and Mikey Doble once again back on the podium. Chris Danes there, P3. I think you've been hoping there was a bit more in it to bring home the win, but still a P3 in race number 1 sets himself up very well for race number 2, ahead of Will Redford and Kieran Sharp, who completed the top 5. Adam Delmont P6. And then Daniel Holmer there, P7 overall, your Pro-Am winner for race number 1, with Jamie Dory P8, Nick Clemens P9, and Adam and Ali completing the top 10. And you mentioned there, it's the best of the rest, Matthew Addy, P11. Also second place in the Pro-Am class, and also to Isaac Doble there, P13, and third place finisher in the Pro-Am class. But as we now come on to the individual class classifications and take you through those in full, we can see here Wayne Douglas, Mikey Doble and Chris Danes are your pro podium. The trio being separated by 3.2 seconds in all at the very end of the race. But of course, Chris Danes finds himself falling more into the battle with Will Redford and also Adam Delmont at the conclusion, enabling Douglas and Doble to break away. Will Redford P4 there, and I think he may have felt the move was potentially on for P3, albeit the altercation with Adam Delmont in the end costing him dear, with Kieran Sharp getting in between and finishing P5. Adam Delmont P6, 90's got the pace to finish inside the top 5, and the Excite Racing driver will dig deep for the purposes of race number 2, ahead of Jamie Dory, Nick Clemens, Adam McNally and Michael Lees, with Gavin Gardner P11, best of the rest in the Pro class, and Gianni Peroni and Sam Smith completing the order there, albeit Sam Smith 2 laps down. And well, we have to look to Gianni Peroni there, who had that major incident at the Kleiner chicane when he was running inside the top 5, and could the story have been much different? I definitely think it could have, and he'll be looking to come through the field as soon as possible in race number 2. Coming on to the Pro-Am class meanwhile, we can see here your race winner of Daniel Holmer by 9.7 seconds over Matthew Addy, and then Isaac Doble completing the Pro-Am podium. And well, the trio there all picking up some major results, and indeed I believe that Isaac Doble maiden podium, for Daniel Holmer maiden win, and Matthew Addy I think maiden second place as well. So all first for them technically, with Paul Scott there P4 battling to P4, Luke Jones P5 missing out on a podium, but still plenty of time on the table with regards to races 2 and 3. Jonathan Collins battling to P6 ahead of Liam Silkstone and Elwyn Sykes in a triumphant P8 ahead of Nigel Stocks and Mark Sykes, with Philip Gruber best the rest in P11 ahead of Joseph Doble, who in the end, with that mistake at the Kleiner chicane, missing out on a podium in race number 1. Unfortunate, but he'll learn from that and bounce back from it. Matt Emmons P13, Alan McCain P14 and Reece Watt P15, and all those drivers having difficult races and find themselves knocked about early on and then having to try and recover their way into the race, with Ian Manners P16, Daniel Weston P17, Tom Delaney P18, and as we look to the very bottom, well, that is all 18 of our Pro-Am drivers here today, ladies and gentlemen. So that's the Pro-Am standings concluded, and well, we now take a brief breather before we go racing once again. And we'll be back in approximately what will be 2 to 3 minutes time for the build up to our second race of the day. Another 15 laps will be coming up shortly. Will we continue to see the runner form from Daniel Holmer in the Pro-Am class and Wayne Douglas in the Pro class, or will we see 2 different winners in race number 2? We'll find out soon. Don't go anywhere, you won't want to miss it. Alrighty then, ladies and gentlemen, we are back for the build-up to race number 2 here in the NXTCC Season 2 Round 3, as brought to you live from the Zolder circuit in Belgium. And of course, we're running the alternate layout with the fast last chicane. The tempo was set in race number 1, with Wayne Douglas and Daniel Homer bringing home the wins in their respective classes of Pro and Pro-Am. But there were battles up and down the field. Indeed, battles well inside the podium places and outside of them, all the way down to an outside of the top 10 in each respective classes. And we're expecting that theme to continue as we make our way into race number 2, which is due to kick off in approximately 4 minutes time. But as our drivers get ready to go racing once more, we do look to our winner from race number 1 in the Pro class of Wayne Douglas from NXTGEN Racing Yellow, and of course picking up his maiden win. It would only be fair if we do try to get a brief word with him as he gets ready to go once again, and hopefully we'll be able to join us in a brief moment. We should be able to get a pat-through from his car as he makes his way on through the turn 7 chicane, and as we do try to get the pat-through with him immediately now and give us a brief moment, we may just be able to hear from our winner from NXTGEN Racing Yellow. And as I believe he does join us now from inside the car. Wayne, a little bit of a moment there going through at turn number 7. Hopefully we haven't put you off too much, but more importantly, what a drive in race number 1 and bringing home your maiden win of the season. Just tell us how you feel about that. I don't think we've got Wayne Douglas's patch coming through, unfortunately, ladies and gentlemen. We may have to leave him to it for now. I think there might be some slight technical issues there, so just give us a brief moment. But it doesn't look as though we're able to get quite the patch through to Wayne Douglas, but we will try and get word from him later on today. As we do look on to our drivers making their way on around still, we also look there to one Michael Lees, who makes his way on through the corners right now and heads up towards the remainder of turn number 7 up towards 8. And as he does, the Excite Racing driver, not having perhaps the race that he wanted in race number 1, having to battle his way hard and fast through the field, but indeed find himself coming stuck up against a good number of Prams and also pros around him. But perhaps race number 2 will work out a little bit better for him. But as we do look to the chat, we say hello to a number of you who we didn't get the chance to say hello to first and foremost, and we start off with there on the YouTube chat, Stephen D. Grevalier, who says welcome all to Belgium, and thank you, Stephen. Belgium is being very welcoming right now for our drivers, I can definitely tell you that. Also hello in the Facebook chat to Gaz Will saying let's go Verano, also to Elwin Sykes there in the YouTube chat, and also to Luke there in the YouTube chat, and also to Stiganator SA. Good evening to you, Stiganator, and I hope you're doing well in the YouTube chat. Indeed, if you're tuning in right now and you're a little bit shy and you can't say hi for whatever reason, don't worry about it. I hope you're having a good time as well. As Luke Jones there making haste to the wall on the outside, or the outside run of turn number 10, going a bit wrong there for the JW Motorsport driver as he tries to bring himself back up to speed. But with just over 1.5 minutes to go, we are going to try and get a quick word with our Pro-Am winner from race number 1, and that was Daniel Homer. Let's see if we can hear from him, although I don't think actually he's available at the moment. No, he is available, and we are just going to try and get the patch through with Daniel Homer in the car. And let's give us a brief moment, ladies and gentlemen, as hopefully we do get the patch through to Daniel Homer from Bright Esports inside the Hyundai Elantra at the moment. Daniel, sorry to distract you as you make your way through turn number 7. We couldn't resist bringing you in for a quick interview after a superb drive to victory in race number 1 in the Pro-Am class. You must feel absolutely on form, out-qualifying the class by a massive margin and also battling with the pros all the way through the race.
Yeah, it was fun race, yeah.
Well, it looks like you're having a lot of fun out there. It looks like you're enjoying the car. How are you feeling from race number 2? Can you think you make it back-to-back wins?
Yeah, of course. Only look forward. Keep your head down.
Indeed, I'm loving the mentality, and we'll leave you to it then, because of course you're focusing on getting clocked in, but good luck in race number 2.
Thank you.
So as we let Daniel Homer go there, a man of few words, but you can understand why when he's trying to concentrate and get himself set up there. But of course, very happy with the performance in race number 1, and now looking forward. And as he said, looking only ahead, upwards and onwards. And well, what can he pull off in our second race of today? We'll have to wait to see. But he'll be starting inside the top 10 with his closest rival, Matthew Addy, starting in P11. And as our drivers make the way on around and get set to go, we're not going to be jumping in with any of our drivers right now, getting a patch through with them. Instead, we are going to focus more on our drivers getting set at this point as the clock strikes 10 minutes, and now we are ready to go racing once more. But as we say hello there to Inter-Evolutions in the YouTube chat, who cheers on Liam Silkstone, and welcome to you, Inter-Evolutions. Great to see you tuning in and getting involved as well. It's time for us to set the grid for race 2. So they line up as follows for race number 2 here today at Circuit Zolder. Wayne Douglas lines up on pole for NXTGEN Racing Yellow with Mikey Doble alongside in P2. Behind them, Chris Daines and Will Redford on row number 2, followed up by Kieran Sharp and Adam Delman on row 3. Daniel Holmer, the Pro-Am pole sitter, starts P7, joined by Jamie Dory, the pro driver, on the 4th row, with Nick Clemens and Adam McNally on row number 5. Then Matthew Addy and Michael Lease line up on the 6th row, Matthew Addy being our second Pro-Am driver, and behind him on the 7th row you have the Pro-Am pair of Isaac Doble and Paul Scott going toe-to-toe for P3 once more. Luke Jones and Jonathan Collins make up your 8th row ahead of Liam Silkstone and Elwyn Sykes on row number 9, Nigel Stock and Gavin Garner on row at number 10 completing the top 20, followed up by Mark Sykes and Philip Bruberg. Then on row at number 12 we have Gianni Peroni and Joseph Doble, followed up by on row 13 Matt Emmons and Alan McCain. On row 14 Reese Watt and Ian Manners there, two drivers who are out of position over the course of the race due to incidents in race number 1. They'll be looking to turn it around in race 2, but that's the procedure complete, ladies and gentlemen. It's time for the race. 1 red light, 2 red lights, 3 red lights, 4 red lights, 5 red lights. And it's lights out and away we go for race number 2 here as Wayne Douglas looks to defend in the run down towards turn number 1. And as he charges on down here, you can see Chris Daines immediately going the offensive on the inside versus Mikey Doble here as they go around Wayne Douglas trying to do the reverse Moses manoeuvre, but they can't quite find it as Douglas manages to power past the two of them. And as they make their way into turn number 2, Daines is not giving up here. He's going to insist about going around the outside as Doble and Redford here stay in formation behind the two NDA Honda Racing drivers. And as they make the way on out here, looking further back, Matthew Addy battling with Michael Lease and being made to run a bit wide, but looking back up towards the leaders here as they come on through turn number 4. It does look as though now everyone going 2 by 2 hurrah down towards the Kleiner chicane. Most of our drivers surviving so far, a couple running a little bit wide, but you can see Doble, Kieran Sharp and also Jamie Dory right on the right of your picture as they come under bacon. Daines looks at the move, he can't quite find it, but meanwhile Kieran Sharp trying to muscle his way in between Delman and Redford. He gets Delman, but does he get Redford? I don't think so, as off circuit goes Nick Clemens. Meanwhile further back we're hearing that Jones has been involved in an incident as Clemens rejoins and he finds, oh goodness me, and Daniel Holman being sent sideways. We've got a wayward Excite machine going across the gravel there. Matthew Addy straight lines on, but it's all gone to a complete horror show for a number of drivers as they've come on down. That was Adam McNally being sent for 6 coming through into turn number 7. We'll take a look back at that very shortly, but meanwhile we look back up to the battle for P2 and Mikey Doble here right now trying to hold off Will Redford as we see Chris Daines has been passed as well as they make the way into turns 9 and 10, but it's been a dramatic opening lap so far and it's not quite done yet as they make the way down to turn number 10 for the first time of asking, and all the drivers trying to carry as much speed on cold tyres. Making their way onwards towards the start-finish line there, 1 lap complete, and meanwhile Matthew Addy, your new prime leader, as they make their way onto another lap. But again in the foreground here we can see Will Redford battling with Chris Daines, and Chris Daines definitely not giving up on this battle here as they come on through the left-hand of turn 1. Reese Watt involved in the incident as well. He's had to come into the pit lane with the damage he's picked up, and as they make their way into turn 2, Daines get a brief tap to the rear of Redford, and Redford right now definitely feeling the pressure from the Danishman behind as they make their way on through turn number 3. But as they come through we look a little bit further back to Liam Silkstone here, who looks to try and find his way past Matt Emmons in the battle for what for them is P8 in the Pro-Am class. They make the way on around, but no change at the moment. But meanwhile, Philip Bruberg there trying to hold off Adam McNally, who after going for the spin across turn number 7, Bruberg on the offensive, and they're side by side, going down, and Mark Sykes into the wall, and he comes across the road, and with him he takes what is Luke Jones there. Jones and Mark Sykes both being caught up, and well, that was an absolutely terrifying moment for all the drivers concerned as Philip Bruberg then made to go high, and well, you can see Sam Smith coming through in the 2 pros here of Smith and McNally well out of position and trying to find the way up the order as fast as possible. But meanwhile further behind Elwyn Sykes here battling with Ian Manners in the hunt for P24 as they come up towards what is the chicane turn number 7, and as they make the way through it, no change at the moment. Sykes falls back and instead has the pressure of Alan McCain. But as we look a bit further up here, Gianni Peroni trying to cut his way out the order as soon as possible. He just makes his way past Nigel Stock now as they make the way into turn number 8 and coming on through the right hand here you can see in the long lollygaggle of cars as they make the way up towards turn number 10. Right now, everyone's starting to form into line formation, but a lot of pros trying to pick their way through the field as soon as possible. But the change, of course, for them will be they need to do so safely. In the fact, we've already seen quite a few drives sent to the grass, if not the barriers beyond. But as they make their way onto another lap here in the foreground, we see Matthew Addy up the inside of Kieran Sharp, battling position. Oh no! And it's all gone wrong for Addy as he comes on through, leading comfortably in the Pro-Am class, and that releases Nigel Stock into the lead of the Pro-Am class here on lap number 3. And will Nigel Stock has risen through the field like a shining star as he makes his way through turn number 2, but it's not over yet. Ahead of him as now Nick Clibbins battles his way up the inside here of Michael, and that's Michael Lease on the inside of Clibbins, we should say, as they come through turn number 3, and Lease gets it done. And a lot of drivers who had a tumultuous race number 1 find themselves much more in the comfort zone in race number 2, as meanwhile Delman here having to defend versus Kieran Sharp under braking. And then looking back to Nick Clements here, trying to hold off with Gianni Perrone, who has come all the way from P23 up to P10 already. You can see the 13 places gained in the battle box as they make the way down towards turn number 7. But right now, Gianni Perrone, the biggest gainer of them all since the start of the race. He has picked up places aplenty, and plenty more to come, I reckon, for the Pro Verona Motorsport driver as they make the way on out through turn number 7 up towards 8. Meanwhile, further back, I can tell you that Matt Evans has just had an off track that's dropped him all the way down the order at the turn 7 chicane. But we're focusing here on the battle between Clemens, Perrone, and also Lease. As you can see, Perrone on the inside, Clemens on the outside at turn number 8. They look to get on the power here. Michael Lease also tries to come through as soon as possible. He can't quite find it as we ride on board here with the Excite Racing driver in P10, trying to battle his way further up into the Pro class as they come onto the brakes for the turn 10 chicane. Of course, all fast line, as you can see, they're battling with a steering wheel, trying to find his apex line. Oh, goodness Lee, as he makes his way just out of the corner and almost into the wall. And that, definitely from our perspective, was a frightful one. But I can imagine there, Lease must have his heart pounding through his chest right now as they go on to lap number 4. And as he comes through the left-hander, we hear that Luke Jones is leaving the pit lane with repair work done to the car. 30 starters, still 30 running. But looking to the battle here for P8 and further up the road, in fact, Mikey Doble battling here with Wayne Douglas and also Chris Daines. And this has all started to make its way under pressure down towards turn number 7. And we will try and catch the start of how that started. But as they make the way down towards the chicane, onto the brakes they go. Douglas right now tucked in behind Mikey Doble. Once Mikey Doble's in the lead, the problem is you're not going to catch him because he breaks away very quickly unless you put him under early pressure. But meanwhile, Will Redford up into P3 and Jamie Dorr and Chris Daines battling behind as they come through turn number 7 once again and make the way up towards turn 8 now. But as they do, Chris Daines losing out and he just cannot get a break in the hunt for the lead of the class. He always seems to have to be battling for the podium positions or just outside of the top 3 as he makes his way down towards turn number 8. But I think he'll be pleased given the calibre of opposition. As he said in the round number 1 post-round interview, he joined the race all the same, as we hear that Isaac Doble and Sam Smith have both had to head to the pits due to incidents quite recently occurred. But as we look to the top 5 here, battling for position overall, and also in the Pro class here, making their way down towards turn number 10 once again. We have Mikey Doble, who now leads the class as they make their way onto lap number 5. As they come charging down towards the braking zone for turn number 1, we do still have Nigel Stott leading in the Pro-Am class here as he makes the from Kieran Sharp into the pit lane, and I believe that is for damage on Kieran Sharp's car as they make the way down towards turn number 1 here. And for Kieran Sharp, let's go see him drop all the way. In fact, he's had to jump to the pit chute to damage, so he's going to essentially have to tow back a lap, and now that is going to cost him ever more dearly as we see Perrone under pressure here from Nigel Stott as they come into the right-hander at 2. Meanwhile, further back, Matthew Addy, after that incident on turn number 1 on lap number 3. Oh, goodness, spears in. Manners gets it wrong and into the wall there as he dips the rear right tyre beyond the exit curbing and the car damaged. Meanwhile, we look from him to Nigel Stock, who battling with Perrone and gets ahead of the Verona Motorsport driver, coming out to turn number 4 and down in the run towards turn 5. The Klein chicane they come, but Stock there backing out, I think, and letting Perrone take the lead and take the initiative. 9, he doesn't need to battle with the pros. He just needs to finish the leader of the Pro-Am class and bring home that all-important win. Meanwhile, further back, and for those of you who are Liam Silkstone fans, he's trying to go on the offensive here versus Philip Bruberg for P15 overall, but more importantly for him, it's P5 in the Pro-Am class. And as he makes his way on down and up towards turn number 7 here, right now you can see these 4 drivers of Philip Bruberg ahead of Silkstone, then Joseph Doble and Matthew Addy, all nose to tail, all battling to be within inside the top 5 of their respective class. They make the way out of the turn 7 chicane, and Bruberg getting a really nice run at the corner, but as they make their way through, Joseph Doble getting a really solid run run in return versus Silkstone as he looks up the inside into turn number 8. Onto the brakes they go, and Matthew Addy tries to make it a 2-for-1 special under braking. He does indeed. He creeps on through, and Paul Scott now also tries to make it a 3-for-1, but I think there was only room for 2 at most. They make the way through turn number 9 and down towards 10 they charge, but as they make the way out towards the braking zone into the fast chicane, you can see now all settling down once again with Alan McCain also getting stuck into the mix here as he closes in P9 in the Pro class, looking at P. Scott and looking an opportunity to find a way on through as Matthew Addy meanwhile takes a peek up the inside here versus Joseph Doble. He goes all in and they both make it through turn number 1 safely as they make the way on out. Of course, for Matthew Addy, that will be giving him flashbacks to what happened on lap number 3 in the battle to turn number 1. As they make the way out of 2 now, up towards turns 3 and 4, staying comfortably behind Matthew Addy as they make the way all the way up towards the right hand up. But I don't think it's going to be for long before he looks to remove. Meanwhile, Adam McNally here being on the offensive, or in fact he's being hounded by Jonathan Collins, and Jonathan Collins P3 in the Pro class right now as he makes his way through the chicane with Sam Smith a lap down behind, so he won't feel too pressured by that as they make the way over the crest and down into the dip for 6. But as they make the way in towards the second chicane, we look back up to race leader Mikey Doble here, who as he makes his way on through turn number 8, definitely looking to be very confident right now as we've got a lock up there, and that is Will Redford who's gone on around. I think there's a bit more to it than just simply he's gone round, and we try and take a look back at what exactly's happened. So coming down under braking here, Redford making contact with the rear of Douglas's car, and then that was contact there, and we're trying to understand what else has happened, but Wayne Douglas definitely being given a knock, and in the end as they put themselves back up to speed, so Will Redford dropping a long way down the order, in fact just parked on the apex there as we finally get the camera over to him, and well for Will Redford it's gone wrong as well, and we just take a look back at that from his perspective in terms of what exactly happened. Coming under braking and just too hot in under braking there for the Mr. Bean helmet driver, and there was contact there from a driver behind, and I think that may have been from Chris Daines behind. Alternatively, Jamie Dory. I can't quite sure what happened, but I think it may have been Chris Daines who was right on the back of that instance. We return to the live pictures here, and as we do, well, we get a good view of the tents for a brief while, and then we see Will Redford now up to speed behind Adam McNally, but he's lost out massively as he now makes his way on lap number 7. Indeed, we have had quite the change of positions inside the top 8 of the Pro class. We're now Michael East up into the P8 there, you see on the timing tower, and meanwhile Redford versus McNally, well, he's going to make his way clear of McNally very quickly as he makes quick work of the Excite Racing driver and now tries to make his way faster and faster up through the field, but he's running out of time. Meanwhile, looking a bit further back here, we can see Daniel Weston battling with Elwin Sykes. Onto the brakes for turn 5 they go, and Weston on the outside, then Elwin Sykes with a short and sweet move and moves his way up into P10 in the Pro class, P21 for him overall as they make the way down towards turn number 7 here, and whilst they're only battling for a limited number of points to them, every point matters as they make the way on through, and the CSA Team 3 driver definitely having a strong run as they come on through the right hander of turn number 7, but as they make the way up towards turn 8, I wonder how long it'll be before Weston comes back at his rival as they make the way down towards turn 8. Indeed, these two have been battling quite hard for position lap after lap. Speaking of rivals in the Pro-Am class, well, here is Philip Bruberg, and look at the long train behind him, running all the way from himself to what is Alan McCain. That is P4 through to P9 as there's contact there between Addy and Bruberg coming on through turn number 10. Meanwhile, behind you can see there Joseph Doble looking for the run here as they come across the timing line. Well, Bruberg's not going to be under pressure, but Joseph Doble here looks around the outside, onto the brakes he goes, but he can't quite do it. Meanwhile, Silkstone goes in very deep, locking up the front brakes, and as he brings it back to bear, the Excite Racing driver just about stops himself and taking a trip to the gravel, and instead loses the place to Paul Scott, but keeps himself in the hunt as they make the way on through turns 2 and 3. But that goes to show you just how hard these guys are pushing as they make the way in towards turn number 4 now, and behind Alan McCain will look at this and think that he can potentially apply the pressure, squeeze a little bit versus of Silkstone and make another error potentially as they make the way down towards the Kleiner chicane once more. As they come charge on down here in the distant view, we can see all 6 drivers staying line astern as they make the way on out, but Addy right now trying to close on up as he makes his way over the crest and down, really trying to get the move on versus Philip Bruberg, and of course Matthew Addy we would expect would have one of the fastest paces here out of our prime drivers given his qualifying position. Daniel Holman being the fastest of them all, albeit Daniel Holman involved in that early instant and cost him dearly, but he's still in the hunt as they make the way on around. In fact, Daniel Holman still running in at P9 overall and leading the Pro-Am class as they make the way down to the braking zone here, and it was ready for Matthew Addy to lose it all as they make the way on through, and in fact, whilst all this has been happening, I can tell that Nigel Stock's had some sort of track somewhere because he's dropped quite a way down, and it has costed versus Daniel Holmer as they make the way up to speed here, and such has been our focus further down the order. There's been the change for lead of the Prime class, and we will try to give you a replay of exactly how that played out in short order. But as they make the way up towards turn number 1 once again, you can see here right now Matthew Addy still trying to find his way past Broberg, but can he find it? That's the question. And I think right now Philip Broberg definitely making it very difficult for his rival as they come out of 1 and up towards 2. Behind me, while Joseph Doble again trying to get into this fight, and Doble definitely feeling confident in doing so. But Addy right now going to try and wrap it round the outside of 2 and 3. But this is going to be bold stuff here from Matthew Addy. Of course, he'll compromise Philip Broberg's line in the run to 4. Broberg will have to take a slightly tighter line. Will they go side by side all the way through the corner? They will, but Addy has to back out as well as Joseph Doble now tries to get into the mix here as they make the way down towards turn number 5. And as they get ready to go onto the brakes there, you can see Doble almost having to take to the grass there with Addy coming across, but they all safely line up together. And as they come on through there behind Liam Silkstone, dropping in ahead of Alan McCain as they make the way through turns 5 and up towards 6. But as they come through the dip and up towards 7, we do look from them up to Adam Delmont here, battling for his P4 in the Pro class, and he is ahead of Wayne Douglas at the moment as they make the way on down towards turn number 10 once again. But Wayne Douglas, of course, with that race-winning pace, looking to try and go on the offensive as soon as possible. And we do have an update with regards to what happened between Nigel Stock and Daniel Holm. We'll show you that very shortly, but Delmont holding on for now. Meanwhile, Matthew Addy on the outside of turn 8 versus Philip Broberg, and as he rejoins there, well, I think Paul Scott had to take evasive manoeuvres and then some in order to avoid the contact and just about survive. But Addy on the outside line, not really able to find any more space other than off circuit, and as they come on through to turn 10, he just makes sure that Alan McCain's not there on his inside. He makes sure that Alan McCain has to back out and holds onto the P7 in class. As you see, Joseph Doble continuing to really push onto the back of Philip Broberg. This is battling for P4 in the Prime class, but these guys are all so close together on pace, and Philip Broberg really putting up a defensive barrier as he squeezes Doble to the inside of 2. But there's a bit of space there. Joseph Doble's going to take it, and I think that is where Broberg is a little bit vulnerable, is in terms of those inside lines. If he can't get them covered off soon enough, then he does leave himself vulnerable to a potential move up the inside as they make the way through turns 2 and 3 and up towards 4 they've gone, and now down towards 5. But the question is, of course, will Paul Scott find himself as troubled here in trying to make the move, or will he make it a bit of a cruise by comparison? Of course, the NXTGEN Racing Blue driver now having to really get into the tip of the spear in terms of this battling for that P4 position. And as they make the way over the crest and down, well, right now I think they will all stay as they are. As you can see, that Doble definitely still squirming to try and find a way and through, but he can't quite find it for the moment, and we get a chance to take a look back at what happened between Daniel Holmer and Nigel Stock. This was in the run, coming through turn 7 up towards 8. And Nigel Stock had an off track coming through the turn 7 chicane, and Holmer there just simply on the racing line, and Nigel Stock backing off there. And I think Nigel Stock deciding, you know what, I can't really battle for the lead of this race given the pace of Holmer, but I can definitely take a P2, and that's what he's gone for there. And that's how Daniel Holmer retook the lead of the Prime class. 3 laps to go. But as we return to live pictures now, the battle for P4 in the Prime class continues to be our focus. They make the way through, and Doble goes a bit wide. He rejoins, but he's got to be careful there, of course, because he has taken the track limit breach. He was made to go wide, so I think the stewards will take one look at that and shrug their shoulders for the first time, but they may not the next time. As meanwhile, Broberg defends on the inside. Matthew Addy comes up the inside of both. What is Doble there, and also Paul Scott. Paul Scott responding now by trying to take the inside into turn number 2. They are absolutely battling tooth and nail here. You love to see it as they make the way on through the corners and coming on out to the right-hander of turn number 3. They'll be looking to try and settle back into formation, but any one of these 5 drivers could potentially bring home P4 in the class. As Joseph Doble looks up the inside there, Paul Scott, he leaves the door open to Scott, and Doble's going to oblige immediately as they make the way on down towards turn number 5. McCain, meanwhile, trying to look for the move here versus what is Paul Scott as they come down into the braking zone, but Scott defends the inside. McCain have a little bit of contact, but they just about survive it as they make the way on the rise and down towards turn 6. Meanwhile, it's not just about the battle for P4 in the Prime class, I can assure you that, as we do look a little bit further up the order, and here is Michael Lees who's under pressure from Daniel Holm, with the pro driver being hounded by the prime drivers. Meanwhile, Mikey Doble sets a fastest lap of the race at 33.484 and absolutely flying. Chris Daines does go a little bit faster, but it's an invalidated lap due to track limits, and therefore it will not count at this time as they make their way on to the next lap. As they make their way into lap number 12, limited laps remain at this point of the race. And indeed, now it becomes about whether the tyres can hold up to the remainder of the distance, as Wayne Douglas up the inside there of Adam Delmont, who went a little bit deep under braking into turn number 2, and he's been made to pay for it significantly as they come through turn number 4. Meanwhile, we look to Will Redford here, who finds himself battling for P10 overall. P10 in the pro class is Will Redford, battling for P9 in class, chasing after Gavin Gardner as they make their way into turn number 4. And as they come through the right-hander here and making their way down towards the braking zone for the Kleiner chicane, it's going to be Redford on the right, it's going to be Gardner on the left here, and Redford getting the better run up the inside on the brakes, and will make a classic pass into the Kleiner chicane and gets it done there for P9 in the pro class. But as they come on through, we look a bit further back to the battle for P4 that is still raging on in the prime class here. They are not settling down, this group, and to be fair, we're not complaining, as there you've also got Elwyn Sykes and Daniel Weston and also Matt Emmons are all on this. This is 8 drivers battling for one position right now as they make their way through the Kleiner chicane. And normally you see this at the start of the race, but that goes to show you how Philip Bruberg is literally making this race so slow in the defence. But to be fair, he's trying to hold position, but he's looking up the inside here to turn 7. He's going to creep on the inside. He cuts it in nicely there, and he finds one through. And now can he break away from Philip Bruberg, or will the Bright Esports driver coming back? Well, I think Jose Doble's going to have something to say about that as he looks up the inside. He can't quite find it, but now as they come over the crest and down towards 8, you can see that Bruberg up the inside using the electric speed. Onto the brakes he goes, and Addy's not going to be given the brake route, but Bruberg goes overly deep and he goes straight off, and Philip Bruberg sends himself away to the distance and brings himself back on. But with that is going to upset the balance of Philip Bruberg and release all of them now up to major pace. And how, if only Philip Bruberg had not made that mistake, could he have held on and tried to hold on to that P4 for a little bit longer? Well, that's a what if question, but now they will start to open up a little bit in this battle for P4 through to P10 in the Pro-Am class. As we see there, Matt Emmons trying to look for a move on Bruberg as they come down towards turn number 1. As they make their way through the left-hander here, no change at the moment between the pair of drivers, and Matt Emmons, I think, starting to look for that move and trying to see where Bruberg is weak. Meanwhile, looking all the way up to our race leader, we haven't forgotten about our overall race leader of Mikey Doble here. He's under a bit of pressure from Chris Daines as they come on through the right-hander at turn number 8, and we look back from the gearbox here of Mikey Doble as it's Honda versus Honda as they make their way through turn number 9. Now the conundrum will be, can Daines get close enough to put that pressure on with only 2 more laps to go after they've cleared the turn 10 chicane? My gut feeling says Daines may be able to get within 3 to 4 attempts over the next 2 laps, but I think Doble may just have a little bit of pace up his sleeve here. Although I say that, of course, contrasting with the pace that Daines showed in qualifying, but I think here Doble may just have that edge. Although now Chris Daines setting a new fastest lap of the race, a 33.207, taking 3 tenths out of Mikey Doble on that previous lap. It could go the way of Daines here in terms of having that opportunity on the final lap. Let's not count him out as they make their way through turn 3 and up towards 4. But as they come charging into the aforementioned right-hander, we look from then to Daniel Holmer, who continues to battle here for P6 overall. He's already leading the Pro-Am class, but he wants more. He wants more points to the overall championship, and well, who could blame him as he tries to go on the offensive here versus Michael Lees as they come through turn number 3 and down towards 4 they go, onto the brakes, and Lees defending here, and Nick Clibbins behind, 1.3 seconds back, may look at this as an opportunity. As you can see Clibbins then, the iRacing esports machine, closing up little by little as they head on down towards turn number 5, and will Lees covering off Holmer initially, and Holman decide not to try and force the move there into the Kleiner chicane. Meanwhile, further back, Philip Bruberg on the inside of Daniel Weston. There's a bit of contact between the 2 of them there. I think Weston finding that Bruberg was going to go a little bit hot under braking in order to make his case, and Bruberg now really dragging the car through turn number 2. I don't think there's much left on the tyres of that Elantra, and Matt Emmons seizing the opportunity up the inside of Weston, and Weston being robbed of positions here as they make their way to turn 4, but Emmons tyre on the inside. It's going to be a very linear approach to turn number 4. There's a bit of contact between the 2 of them. Matt Emmons there losing out versus Weston, who carries the speed up towards turn number 5. He looks at the comeback here, but I don't think he's got enough in the Audi in order to get it done. As the white flag is outside the outside the contact box window, the race leaders do go on to the final lap of the race, and well, as we look to them now, Mikey Doble leading this race by 8 tenths of a second ahead of Chris Daines as he sets a personal best of the race as Mikey Doble with 33.226, and as they make the way through turn 2 and into 3, it looks as though it is only going one way, and we will see the NDA Honda Racing driver return to the top step at the end of race number 2. Of course, it's not over until he takes the checker flag. Anything can happen here as they make the way through 4. They've still got 6 more corners to go, 6 very tricky corners at that, but you'd have to imagine that now Mikey Doble would need to have a major error, and that's the one thing he's not known for as they make the way through the turn 5 chicane one last time under race conditions here in race 2. Meanwhile, further back, Alan McCain here, who we look to in the rear of the picture, going to the left-hand side now in the iRacing Esports Elantra, trying to look around the outside of on your right, Joseph Doble. They're battling for P5 in the Prime Class, P15 overall, and to them, they both want this top 5. They'll feel as though they've earned it as they both set personal best on their penultimate lap, but as they come on through turn number 2 and up towards 3, you can definitely see right now that Alan McCain trying to bring all the momentum around the outside of 3 up towards 4, and Joseph Doble simply just put the car on the inside and say, well, you could do that, but now I'm going to make turn 4 an absolute nightmare for the pair of us in terms of making it so we can't carry the speed through the corner. McCain goes a bit wide there and he has to back out as a result, but meanwhile we look from them to the leaders here, and whilst Chris Daines is within half a second, it's only one chicane between them and the checkered flag, and as they come out the final corner, the checkered flag awaits him, and Mikey Doble will take the win in race number 2 here at Circuit Zolder, overall in the Pro Class ahead of Chris Daines P2, and then it will be Jamie Dory who completes the overall and Pro podium P3 ahead of Wayne Douglas, Adam Delman behind him P4. Daniel Holmer will come on through to make it 2 wins out of 2 in the Prime Class here, P6 overall in a superb recovery drive for the Bright Esports driver ahead of Michael Leese and Nick Clibbins, and it will be Gavin Gardner P9 there ahead of Will Redford P10, completing the overall top 10. And then a bit further back, it will be Adam McNally who comes on through to bring on home the best of the rest in P11 as he comes to the line ahead of Nigel Stock, who could have had the win. A mistake denied him it, but still he'll take a P2 in the Prime Class, P12 overall. He'll be pleased as punch for that. Jonathan Collins comes on through, flashing the lights like mad for his maiden podium of the season there in P3 in the Prime Class, P13 overall ahead of Matthew Addy to the line. Joseph Doble P5 in Prime, P15 overall ahead of Alan McCain, holding off McCain to the finish. And then it'll be Paul Scott P17, and a bit further back, Philip Bruberg putting on some absolutely brilliant defensive driving all the way, but he couldn't make it count at the very end. Mattman's P19 as he comes on through, then Daniel West at P20, Liam Stapleton there in P21, and then we still do have Ian Manners to come on through. He'll be the last of our finishers on the lead lap, with Gianni Peroni, Reese Watt, Elwyn Sykes, Sam Smith having already finished their races. Also Luke Jones, and we've had the retirements of Isaac Doble, Mark Sykes, and also, well, in fact, no, they've come into the pits, but they've not retired. But we have had Isaac Doble and Mark Sykes finish their race in the one retiree of Kieran Sharp as Ian Manners completes our finishers on the lead lap. But what a fantastic race, ladies and gentlemen. It was battling up and down the field, but in the primes, that battle for P4 never wanted to stop. But let's take you through those race results, subject to any stewards' inquiries, of course. And as we look to the race results then, we can see that Mikey Doble taking the overall win here, back on a winning run ahead of Chris Daines by half a second, and Jamie Dory completing the overall podium. NDA Honda Racing taking 2 of the 3 spots, with Rano Motorsports, Danishman there, making up the 3rd one of them, albeit in 2nd place. Wayne Douglas, P4 ahead of Adam Delman. Both drivers there in with a chance of podium, if not the win, but losing out in their respective races through incidents and mistakes. And Wayne Douglas, of course, with that moment with Will Redford at turn number 8. Daniel Homer, P6 there, winner in the Prime Class, making it 2 out of 2 so far tonight. Can he make it a hat-trick? We'll have to wait and see. Michael Leese, P7, ahead of Nick Clibbins, Gavin Gardner, and Will Redford completing the top 10. And then Adam McNally, best of the rest there, the pro driver in P11 overall. And a call out to what is Nigel Stott and Jonathan Collins there, P12 and P13 respectively. They are 2nd and 3rd in the Pro-Am class, completing your Prime podium. But now coming on to the individual classes from the overall results, we can see here, starting with our pros, of course, Mikey Doble, Chris Daines, and Jamie Dory are your podium finishers there, with Doble and Daines going all the way to the right, and Jamie Dory making his way ahead of Wayne Douglas and Adam Delman in the fight for 3rd. Wayne Douglas P4, Adam Delman P5, Michael Leese P6 in a resurgent run in race number 2, picking up the pieces where many others lost out and making sure to battle hard for that 6th place, ahead of Nick Clibbins, Gavin Gardner, Will Redford, and Adam McNally. Best of the rest, P11 there, Gianni Peroni, the Verano Motorsport driver, finishing a lap down. He'll not be pleased with how his first 2 races have gone, but you can imagine he'll look to bounce back in race number 3. And then Sam Smith and Kieran Sharp completing the pro standings, with Sam Smith finishing 2 laps down and Kieran Sharp with that early retirement for the Sim Racing Collective. Then coming on to what is our Pro-Am classification, we can see here our Pro-Am winner of Daniel Homer winning in the end by 21 seconds. Albeit, I think there the margin just goes to show you how much pace he's delivering, and that's even with the recovery drive past Nigel Stott. Nigel Stott P2, Jonathan Collins P3, they're completing at the top 3 on the podium. Matthew Addy P4, not quite able to get back ahead of Jonathan Collins after leading for a sizable portion of time on the opening couple of laps with everything that happened on the opening lap, but contact between himself and of course the Sim Racing Collective driver Kieran Sharp saw the Next Gen Racing yellow driver lose out on the potential win. Joseph Doble P5 there, and a great race in the ND Honda Racing driver ahead of Alan McCain. Paul Scott P7 continuing to rise and become a threat in the midfield ahead of Philip Bruberg, who had that brilliant defensive run only to get it wrong at turn number 8 with a couple of laps to go. Matt Emmons P9 bringing himself into the top 10 and continuing to rise in form as well, the Verano Motorsport driver, and Daniel Weston completing the top 10 for 52 Zilla with Crest Racing. Best of the rest Prime there, Liam Silkstone in P11 ahead of Ian Manners, Reese Watt, Elwin Sykes, Luke Jones, Isaac Doble and Mark Sykes. And you can see there from Reese Watt to Mark Sykes, 5 drivers all having difficult races of their own and looking to have a better race 3, that I'm certain of. But those are your results for race number 2. And well, now, ladies and gentlemen, you know what time it is. It is time for us to cut over to the commentary booth and do the reverse grid draw. So as you join me in the commentary booth here, what's the name of the story? Well, I do have a lottery bowl in front of me with the numbers P6 through to P12, and I have one of each of them here on folded up sticky notes. I can't look, and what I'm going to do very shortly is close my eyes and shuffle them and then pick out the number that will be drawn tonight. But before we do so, on this one sticky note is the number 10, and of course last time out we threw the sticky note over our shoulder, whereas today what we're going to do, we have got the Next Gen Racing official white bin here. We're going to open it up, and we're just going to put P10 inside the bin, so that way it can't be involved in any means whatsoever. And now with the bin used and whatnot, we now close our eyes and make the draw. Okay, and now we've done our shuffle, we make our draw, and our number for today will be as follows. It is going to be a small reverse grid. It is the number 6. It's the first time it's come up this season, but P6 will be your reverse grid pole. And we're taking a look at our standings from what is race number 2. That means that Prime winner Daniel Homer will be on pole position for race number 3. Can he bring home a maiden overall podium and be the first Pram driver to do so in Season 2 of the NXTCC? We will find out in approximately 5 minutes time when we come back for the build-up. Don't go anywhere, ladies and gentlemen. You won't want to miss it. We'll see you shortly. Alrighty then, ladies and gentlemen, we are back for the build-up to race 3 of round 3 of the NXTCC Season 2 here today at Circuit Zolder alternate layout. We have had 2 thrillers of races so far, with race number 1 seeing battles aplenty in the hunt for the win and the top 5 in the pro class, and that continued into race number 2. But the big theme of race number 2, of course, was all about recovery. A number of drivers having to pick their way through the field in order to place themselves as best as possible for race number 3, and Daniel Holmer embodying that most, of course, recovering after that early instant to take the win in the Pro-Am class, but also put himself P6 overall and creep into that reverse grid pole position, given the fact that only the number 6 was drawn today. But there's so many stories out there, including the hard and intense battle for P4 in the Pro-Am class, which in the end dissolved after Philip Bruberg's mistake and saw the battling make its way into the hunt for P3, which went the way in the end of one of our drivers who's on the recovery charge. But still, we've got plenty of drivers out there all looking to push hard, push fast as well, and well, who will be coming out on top in race number 3? That will be the big question. But as we look to the field making the way on around at the moment, and in particular we do look to Gavin Gardner. Well, in fact, we won't quite catch Gavin Gardner at the moment, as we do see he's currently in the pit lane, but in fact we do look to Luke Jones instead, looking as though Luke Jones here getting himself set after 2 difficult rounds of racing behind him, or in fact 2 difficult races behind him we should say, and the JW Motorsport driver now 9, it's all going to come down to having a better race number 3 to carry forward that championship momentum. But many drivers having difficult races and really having to try and bring themselves back into the fight and back into the hunt. But that's what it's all about, and that's why we do have the 3 races rather than just a single race, for the simple reason there's points up plenty between each and every race. Every race is weighted equally in terms of points, and therefore bringing home a consistent set of results in all 3 races will do just as good as if you bring home the win in one, but then a very low finish in the other 2. In between, whilst we were waiting to go underway once again with race number 3, we say hello there to Innocent Ali in the Twitch chat, and good evening to you, Ali. Hope you're doing well. And also to Adam McNally in the YouTube chat, who was saying that the Oculus Rift kept moving about and recentered all race, and pointing out there just making himself feel a little bit sick as a result, and I can imagine that might be quite difficult to deal with. Keep in mind, of course, a good number of our drivers do race with virtual reality headsets, of course, for the ultimate racing experience if they're not racing with triple monitors. But then some of us do race with single monitors, of course, in the sim racing world. But whatever tickles your boat, of course, you can put a lot of money in for sim racing, but indeed it is becoming a more and more viable racing experience in terms of you can make your way into entry level sim racing, or a whole variety of products these days, and it depends on how much you want to spend if you want to go fully professional or somewhere in between. But speaking to someone in between at the moment, I think Gianni Prani may be feeling a little bit in between as he makes his way into his final race, because qualifying went very well. Race number 1, however, did not go well after an early incident. Race number 2 saw him gain an absolute plethora of places, only for it to all unfold once again and really not going the way he's wanted it at all today. And you can imagine that for the Verano Motorsport driver now, with limited time to go and limited points available here at Zolder, this may be one of those rounds that he has to underwrite as he makes his way up towards turn number 1 once again. We are seeing if any of our drivers are available for a quick word, but it does look as though not too many aren't. With less than a minute to go, we may just leave it there in terms of trying to grab another of our drivers now, try and get a patch through with them, and instead we'll focus on getting ready for the formation of the grid as our drivers get ready to go one more time. But still, indeed, all our drivers battling hard, and we do try to bring you those perspectives from our drivers between rounds, just because it's good to see how their moods perhaps changing, or their perspectives on a previous race compared to the one they're going into. But at the same time as well, give our drivers all the time and the headspace in order to get themselves set, as we see Reswat from JW Motorsport making his way through turn number 3 up towards 4 here. And Reswat having a difficult day as well after an absolutely brilliant day in the sun of Spain. Today at Belgium, it's been quite the contrast, but still, championship campaigns are made up of multiple rounds. They're not made up of singular rounds, and that's what will be in the mind of the JW Motorsport driver as the checker flag comes out in this final practice session and we get ready to transition over to the grid. So as our drivers line up for the final time this evening, let's take you through the grid for race number 3. They line up as follows for race 3 of round 3 of the NXTCC Season 2. Daniel Homer takes reverse grid at pole position overall and in the Pro-Am class, and is joined by pro pole sitter Adam Delmont for Excite Racing. Wayne Douglas and Jamie Dory line up on what is there the second row for NXTGEN Racing Yellow and NDA Honda Racing together. Behind them, meanwhile, Chris Daines and Mikey Doble. Then on the fourth row, we have Michael Leese and Nick Clibbins, followed up by Gavin Gardner and Will Redford completing your top 10, with Adam McNally and Nigel Stott lining up on the 6th row. Nigel Stott, of course, looking to try and bring home a maiden winning class. It's going to be a challenge, given he starts in P12. Behind them, Jonathan Collins and Matthew Addy, the two Pro-Ams, line up together on row number 7, with Joseph Doe and Alan McCain on row number 8. Paul Scott and Philip Bruberg on row number 9, with Matt Emmons and Daniel Weston line up on the 10th row, completing the top 20. And then Liam Silkstone and Ian Manners making up row 11, with Gianni Peroni and Reese Watt on row number 12. But the gridding process is complete, ladies and gentlemen. We have to cut ourselves short. It's time for the lights. 1 red light, 2 red lights, 3 red lights, 4 red lights, 5 red lights. And it's lights out and away we go for the final time tonight as Daniel Holman looks to get a good launch off the line down towards turn number 1. But the Elantra being quite slow off the launch. Has he done enough here? I think he has. Delmont's made to go a little bit wide on the outside, and Wayne Douglas immediately seizing the opportunity, but he can't quite find it as they make the way out now, and all starts heading towards turn number 2. Everybody survives turn 1, but you can see that Mikey Doble covering off the middle of the road there to make sure he can't be pressured by Clemens at least, as we can see a little bit further back, Will Redford being made to go 3 wide and out on the outside of turn 2. But as they make the way through 3 and down towards 4, Chris Daines now trying to go on the offensive versus Wayne Douglas as they make the way for the right-hander and head up towards turn number 5 they go. But meanwhile, further back, Nigel Stock there in the rear of the picture, holding on to Peter in the Pro-Am class with the pressure from Matthew Addy. But it does look as though the top 3 starting to creep away. But meanwhile, Michael Leese finds himself side by side in the hunt versus Clemens. There's contact between the two. Clemens is sent across the road, and this could be disastrous. All the drivers have to cut their way on through. And as we look to the blimp camera here, everyone's making it through just about. Albeit we have got quite a few drivers who have come across the road, but they're all getting themselves turned. And Gavin Gardner's had to jump to the pits as we now look back to the lower ground and look back to our pictures here at turn number 7. And well, it has all kicked off at the turn 5 chicane, but most of our drivers have survived the deluge of damage as they make the way up to speed through 7 and down towards 8. Meanwhile, we look up to Chris Daines here, who's having to battle and hold off Mikey Doble. And well, of course, in the previous race, it was Chris Daines trying to hunt down Mikey Doble, and he wasn't quite successful in doing it for the win, holding on to P2 in the end. But now, Daines has to try and keep Mikey Doble at bay, whilst also creeping his way up to Douglas, Delmont and Holmer ahead as they come charging on through turn number 10 for the first time under race pace in race 3. But as we see here, Matthew Addy right now under a bit of pressure. In fact, we can see Joseph Doble coming on through there, and I think Joseph Doble cutting on from the inside with maximum possible speed and malice as they make the way underneath the grandstand and onwards towards turn number 1. But as they head down to the braking zone, we've got Will Redford into the pit lane, Gavin Gardner in as well. So Redford and Gardner have both had difficult starts to their race as our drivers come charge on through. But meanwhile, going off circuit there, that's Jonathan Collins, Philip Bruberg and also Daniel Weston. And well, you can see there, Reese Watt now trying to pick up all the pieces, as meanwhile, we hear that Paul Scott has been involved in it, so he's had to jump to the pit. So something's gone wrong for Paul Scott as he's had to be towed to the pit lane. Meanwhile, Reese Watt here has already gained 10 places off the start, and so has Sam Smith 2 places behind. And right now, the JW Motorsport driver, your championship leader of the Pro-Am class, has been on cut left for Philip Bruberg, goes across the road. Oh, goodness me! And Daniel West is collected, and Bruberg goes back across the road. It's a disaster at turn number 4 down towards 5, and multiple drivers caught up there, as you can see. That meanwhile, Luke Jones just having to cut his way between all the damage, but that was a complete disaster for multiple drivers. And well, now they're all going to be thinking about potentially being towed to the pits, if not having to safely try and get the way around and into the pit lane. But meanwhile, that was further down in the midfield, and we can see here that Daniel Homer continues to push on. But as they make the way down towards turn number 10 here, we do have a yellow flag of caution has been thrown, and I believe we may have the safety car as a result of that, as we are just waiting for the confirmation. But I believe the safety car may have been deployed, and the racing may now come to a slowing halt as we see Daniel Holman leading our drivers onto lap number 3. But as he comes into turn number 1, I think the safety car will be waiting for them, and indeed it will be picked up very shortly as the safety car has been deployed. But what a tragic incident there with regards to the contact coming through the corners. But the safety car is out here, and as a result now, as our drivers make the way in behind, it gives us a brief breather and gives us an opportunity to understand what exactly happened at the start of this race. And well, we take a look back at that incident firstly between multiple of our drivers in the run through turn 4 and lap number 2. And well, as we now get the opportunity to take a look back here, it starts off with Philip Broberg getting it slightly wrong. And as he came out the corner, this is what really treated it off. In fact, there was contact there between Broberg and another driver, and then everybody else just pulled into Philip Broberg, who was probably holding the brakes, but there's nothing he could do other than be a passenger in his own car. But we tried to understand what exactly happened to Philip Broberg as they came on through. Now, was there contact between Broberg and Reese Watt? Yes, there did seem to be a bit of contact, and that is what set it all off. And if you were a driver coming up to this, it was literally just Hail Mary and hope you can either stop or make your way on through. And Liam Silverstone there literally made his way on through, albeit being passed around the outside by what was one of his peers, but still making it through safely. And as we return to the live pictures, that's what set off the Philip Broberg incident in the run through turn 4 to 5. Meanwhile, looking up to what was the very start of the race, of course, we did have that major moment in the run to turn number 5 and through the chicane, and we do try to find out what exactly happened there. We will take a look back very shortly, ladies and gentlemen. And in fact, as we do with the safety car still being deployed at the moment, I think we are about to get a replay of what exactly happened. Well, this was at the very start of the race then, so we're looking more towards the midfield here and focusing on Paul Scott as he battled with Philip Broberg through turn number 1. Now, of course, the incident didn't occur until turns 4 and 5, and as we look to the blimp camera, this will give you a perspective of all the drivers making their way through turn 2, and you can see there a lot of drivers battling side by side through, but nobody really getting caught out or any major incidents or calls for distress. And as they came through turn number 4, this is where they start to concentrate together. You can see the top 10 there, the pros all started to come together under braking. I think this is what started to set off the chain with regards to potential contacts. We look to Nigel Stock as he came under braking on in here, and well, there was the initial contact between Michael Leese and what was by the iRace esports car, and this is where everybody started to come on through, and it really was taking evasive action. Evans there in contact with one of the JW Motorsport cars, but they both survived that contact, so really it was just a limited number of cars coming to the contact. Gavin Gardner, of course, being caught up and having to jump to the pits, but as we return to the live pictures now, we can see here Daniel Homer just gradually making his way on through and down around as the safety car continues to stay out at the moment, but this is the first time we've seen the safety car here today at Circuit Zolder, and well, we've had a couple of major incidents, but none that have seen the road blocked up with damage like we saw with the incident on lap number 2. And this gives a lot of drivers an opportunity to come back into the proceedings and get back into the hunt. So for drivers who've been involved in incidents or seen themselves lose multiple places, this actually works out quite nicely for them. It gives them a reset, albeit they will have to battle their way through. And of course, Circuit Zolder, not an easy place to overtake, but still it gives them every possible opportunity they can, as Daniel Homer right now continues to lead this race. And well, the prime driver here, starting from pole, I think there might have been a little bit of trepidation at the fingertips and toes of the Bright Esports driver, but if there was, he's not showing it in the fact that right now he's been given a nice breather here, and of course every lap that's taken away under the safety car, it will make him feel very comfortable indeed in terms of not having to worry as much about defending for multiple laps. And also, one thing that does work out for him, he's still got Adam Delman and Wayne Douglas behind him. Of course, Adam Delman and Douglas will both be looking to come on through. They'll want to make the move for the overall win, simply because that gives them more points, and it also gives them clearance to the bigger threats, you would argue, based on championship pace, and that is Mikey Doble, and also a little bit further back, the likes of, excuse me, of what is Will Redford and company. But of course, with so many drivers in the class, and the pro class being caught up in the incident, Mikey Doble right now really the big name that can go on the offensive. Chris Daines all the way down P25 as well, so many drivers being caught up in that incident. But I think the safety car will be coming in at the end of this lap, given the lights have gone off on the safety car. So we will wait to see where Daniel Homer starts to bunch the field up, coming out of turn 8 and down towards 10, or whether he will stay with the safety car and go as late as possible. But a number of drivers heading to the pits for repair work to the car, with the incidents have occurred over the race as they make the way on down here. Homer backing off a little bit from the safety car, and well, we'll wait to see when he does go, if the safety car does peel off, as we believe it will. It does indeed. And now waiting for Homer to go racing. When will he go? He's waiting at the moment. He's not going yet.
Green flag, green
And there he goes racing once again, and Daniel Homer takes us racing for race number 3 once more as they make their way down towards turn number 1. Into the braking zone they go, and as they do, Wayne Douglas gets a really good run on Adam Delmont here on the inside. The two pros make a little bit of a rub, but you can see Daniel Homer has timed this one to perfection as they make the way under braking into 2. But look at Mikey Doble here, immediately seizing on the opportunity. He does not waste any time, does Doble, as they make the way through 2 into 3, up to P3 already, and robbing Wayne Douglas there immediately of that return move versus Adam Delmont. Behind Adam McNally, also trying to close into the fight as they come through 4 and down towards turn number 5 they charge, but as they make the way on down towards the braking zone for the Kleiner chicane, you can see now everybody line astern here. I don't think they want to push it as hard in terms of battling early for the simple reason it's all gone wrong so many times so far. You see Jonathan Collins here on the inside, he's going to get caught out in terms of loss of pace versus where Sam Smith as the pro driver tries to pick his way past the Prime. The Next Gen Racing Blue as they make the way down through turn number 6. Collins on the inside here. Will Smith back out? Will he fully commit to the move? He's going to back out and try and tuck back in. There's a bit of contact and a tap there as Matt Emmons finds himself on the outside slightly, but they make the way on out of the corner. Meanwhile, Mikey Doble jumps up into P2 as Adam Delmont being caught down the exit at 7. Meanwhile, Wayne Douglas here goes up the inside before turn 8 versus Delmont, jumps back into P3 as they make the way through turn number 8 and through 9. Now they go, and now Daniel Homer has probably got the most unfavourable task of anybody, and that is to hold off overall championship leader Mikey Doble as they make the way into turn number 10, and he's got plenty of laps to have to take his mission and complete it as they make the way on through the chicane. But meanwhile, Joseph Doble loses it coming out of the final corner, a whack to the wall. He's on the inside there. That car will not be going anywhere other than to the pit lane with a tow, and well, thankfully out of the way of all the drivers, but losing the rear with Simmons. Nigel Stott losing the rear slightly. Oh goodness me, Nigel Stott losing there, and Matthew Addy can't do anything than give him a brief tap to send him off circuit there. But I think for Matthew Addy, he'll just carry on with light damage on the front end of the car. But for Nigel Stott, another mistake has cost him dear as he will drop a long way down the order right now on this 6th lap. They've still got plenty of time to go, but it is drama by the dozen here at Zolder in race number 3. It's almost as if they've saved it up for the final race, albeit I think that's just the way it's gone here as we see one driver flash his lights, being a bit inconvenienced and being pushed off the circuit, I think he feels, and that's Nick Clibbins in the iRacing Esports Honda as they make the way into braking here into the chicane, the Kleiner chicane. You can see here Gavin Gardner in a bit of a side-by-side moment with his teammate Chris Daines, the two pros here trying to navigate their way around one another. Daines is going to be on the inside in the drop through 6, and as they make the way in towards turn 7, Gardner's going to tuck in here and make sure he does not lose position to the people behind, and Ian Manners to the wall there, losing under braking. The rear of the car just coming completely loose. It's a knock to the tyre barrier, but thankfully I think he'll be able to get the car back up to speed. It won't cost him too dearly, but he doesn't know it's Michael Lees coming on through, and the two of them come together, and well, I think some words may be exchanged down the paddock after the race. But meanwhile, we look up to Gianni Perrone here, who tries to cut his way up from P20 to P19 versus Daniel Weston. But the thing is, of course, with these pros, when they come up against the primes are allowed to fight. They're going to dig deep, and Perrone comes into contact there with Weston, and Weston, I think there might have just been a little bit of manoeuvring from Weston as they came on through, albeit the camera angle not the most obliging for either of them as they make the way up towards turn 1. We've got Liam Silkstone. I think Liam Silkstone has made contact with the outside wall of turn number 10, the first driver to do so under race conditions and have the major event that we've all been fearing may happen as Perrone loses the rear there into turn number 1. It's all going wrong for so many drivers. But meanwhile, for one driver where it's not going wrong, here's Wayne Douglas right now as we see Adam Delmont. They're going very wide out of turn number 4. You have to be careful with that because there is the tyre barrier not too far away from the exit of turn 4 on that outside line. And as Douglas here continues to chase after Mikey Doble, Daniel Homer right now under huge pressure in the lead as we ride on board the gearbox here of the Bright Esports driver. And they're making their way down towards turn number 7. Doble there staying in the wings, not deciding to try and force the issue and immediately in the run through the chicane. And as they make the way through the double right to complete turn 7 and head up towards turn 8, I think for Doble, he's just waiting for the right opportunity where he can go for the move, but also make sure that he can dead stop Homer behind him and make sure he's not at risk of Wayne Douglas coming in. I think here comes the move as they make the way to break him into turn 8, but Doble goes deep and Daniel Homer cuts it back. Now can Doble get the run out of the corner? No, he cannot, and Daniel Homer there definitely deploying some strategic nuance in terms of knowing when to pick his fight as they make the way down towards turn number 10, and Douglas and Delmont have closed up behind as a result. And also Adam McNally here, who if you were to say to me before this race that he'd be racing inside the top 5 right now, well, we wouldn't have expected it, and that's not to besmirch the driver's reputation, but that goes to show you how Adam McNally has gradually rose his way up through the ranks over the course of the last 2 races. Meanwhile, Douglas up the the inside of Doble there, and I think Doble being caught out a little bit with regards to Douglas making the move from quite far back as Wayne Douglas sets the fastest lap of the race as he goes on to lap number 8 with a 33.75. Say what you will about Wayne Douglas in terms of how it's worked out in the first 2 rounds, but in this round at Zolder, Wayne Douglas is definitely showing he is the measure of everybody as they make the way through turn number 4. And right now, I think Doble is thinking, let me go after Homer. Well, he's not going to be given the opportunity because Wayne Douglas here wants something a bit bigger, and that is to take a scalp off of Mikey Doble and take the win in race number 3 as they come through the chicane once again. But as they make the way up towards turn number 7 now in the charge, we of course got many a driver behind vying for position. And one driver as well has gained 18 places, and indeed it's the rise of a number of drivers who've had difficult nights of racing. We can see here Reese Watt has moved all the way up to P6, P2 in the prime class, but P6 overall. He's got Alan McCain and Matthew Addy behind as they make the way through turn 7. And right now the primes here definitely enjoying some of the highest placements over the course of the season so far. We have got 4 out of the top 10 places occupied by prime drivers right now. You're looking at 3 of them running together here with Matthew Addy at the back of the group in P8, P4 in class, and Reese Watt at the front with Alan McCain in between, and then Daniel Holmer leading this race still with time to go as we reach the halfway point, and we've still got a few more laps in the bank account. But meanwhile, we look back to Gianni Perrone here, who's gone up the inside there and taking the move on Matt Emmons as he now makes his way down towards turn number 10, and we take a brief moment to take a look at what happened to Liam Silkstone. Making its way into turn number 10, carries a lot of speed. I think there's going to be contact with the wall, and it is, and the car gets sent on around there, and Silkstone reversal across the road, and my goodness there, well that could have been very different for a number of drivers, but thankfully it wasn't to be as they all managed to clear the seas around the stricken car. And as we return to live pictures now, Gianni Perrone currently trying to chase down Philip Bruberg here as they make the way under braking. Bruberg a lap down, so he will have the blue flags waving, but there's contact between the two of them, and well, I hate to say this, I think Perrone there just came out a little bit too sharp, expecting Bruberg to have backed off completely, but it wasn't to be, albeit I think the stewards may end up taking a look at that one from both drivers' perspectives, but I think they're Perrone just a little bit hot on the throttle, but that's why we're in the commentary booth and not the stewards in room, as meanwhile Jamie Dory here making his way down the hill through turn at number 6 at the moment, finds himself having to try and chase down Sam Smith, who is 4 seconds up the road in P9 overall, P5 in the pro class, but for Dory he's got Clemens and also Chris Daines behind him. How so many drivers find themselves out of position here compared to where they've typically been. This race has definitely been a much different one compared to the first 2 races today, but it has shaken up the order and it is leading some great battles, including Isaac Doble versus Jonathan Collins here, as behind Gavin Gardner the pro looks at the 2 prams and tries to find a way on through. Isaac Doble on the inside here, Collins is made to go a bit deep on the outside. Just behind them there, that is Luke Jones as well in the JW Motorsport Honda, and as they make the way 2 by 2 down towards turn number 10, they battle their way into turn 10. Meanwhile, up front, Wayne Douglas has found his way past Daniel Holmer. We'll take a look at that very shortly as everything is kicking off. And in fact, Wayne Douglas now leads this race as Mikey Doble cuts the inside versus Daniel Holmer through turn number 2. And Adam Delmont now is trying to make it. Hunting season here as they come on through 3. And there's a bit of contact between the 2 of them. Delmont now with a little bit of a rub. There's even more contact, and Delmont is going to be rubbing even further versus Holmer. And I think both drivers not wanting to give way to one another, but in the end, Adam McNally comes on through and takes P3 overall. And you can see that Daniel Holmer not too pleased. A major flash of lights as they come under braking into the chicane. But I think they've now settled their differences after a little bit of the red mist descending. And Adam McNally finds himself into the podium positions overall and in the pro class as they make the way down and towards turn at number 7. But meanwhile, Mikey Doble up the inside, but he goes overly deep. And as they cut back here, he covers it off, and Mikey Doble with a late move and a dive to the inside into turn number 7 gets it done. And well, let's just take a look back at how that all started off with regards to the lap, because there were multiple items to unpick there. And well, we start off with Wayne Douglas's move for the lead on the run to turn 1. Well, here Wayne Douglas from far back, and again he's known for this in terms of these late moves into turn 1, but making it work there like clockwork. And then Mikey Doble having to find his way on from the inside in. Look at Adam Delmont as well, position himself to say, right, well, I'm also coming through here as well, but Delmont not able to get the power down as comfortably by comparison as they made the way out of 2-3, and that's what led to the contact between the 2 of them. But as they then made their way through turn number 4, we wind forward to the battle between Mikey Doble and Wayne Douglas, and we ride on board here with Mikey Doble as he looked for the move, having all the momentum up the inside, broke very late but got the car stopped just in time, and a beautiful move there for Mikey Doble to take the lead of the race as we return to the live pictures. And well, now Wayne Douglas is falling further back already. He's dropped to 7 attempts, and I think he might just be a little bit shell-shocked with regards to that move from Mikey Doble, which came out of nowhere. But to be fair, sometimes you've got to be bold and brave to get it done, and that's exactly what Mikey Doble's done as they make the way into turn number 5 on these live pictures with 5 laps to go, including the lap they're currently on lap number 11. But meanwhile, whilst all that's been happening further down the field, we've also had some moments for drivers, including Matt Evans here, battling currently for P7 in the Prime class, chasing after Jonathan Collins and also Luke Jones. You can see Matt Evans then, the Verano Motorsport Audi RS3, swings one side, swings the other, but the rear of the car seems to not be settled at the moment. He has to stop the car from swaying and has to back out of it there. I think he was trying to throw a dummy on Collins into turn number 5, but in making so many direction changes in such a short period of time, unsettling the rear of the car. And of course, we know one Verano Motorsport driver who has a reputation for finding a way of doing that in the Audi RS3 in season 1 of the NXTCC, Chris Daines. If you didn't get a chance to see what happened at Circuit Zandvoort, we definitely recommend you go back at that if you want to see an Audi that drifts its way under braking. Matt Evans there trying to recreate that, I think, a little bit, but not quite getting the car settled in time as they make their way down towards turn number 8. As they come into the braking zone here, you can definitely see at the moment Collins fighting on and trying to get his way back into the top 5 in the Prime class. His target will be Luke Jones, who just sits in front here with Gavin Garner, having cleared these Prime drivers as they make the way on through into the end of lap 11 to go on to lap 12. Not many laps remaining right now. This race has blown on by for the drivers. Indeed, the safety car did consume a good 3 laps of racing, but still they've had 12 out of the 15 laps and the time wears on. As meanwhile, further back there you can see, well, Philip Bruberg having to back out on the outside, and Emmons here looks like the inside of Collins, as Collins, I think, are trying to navigate Bruberg, and in return not carrying as much speed as he would like. Emmons is going to look up the inside here into turn 2. He's got his nose in the gap, and Collins there turns in, but he finds Emmons and has to open the steering wheel back up. But Matt Emmons there capitalising on the situation and gaining what is P7 in the Prime class and P16 overall, as they make the way through turn number 4 and down towards 5 once again. Now Ian Manners tries to get onto the back of this fight, but they will be trying to hunt down Luke Jones as soon as possible. As meanwhile, we look back up to some of our leading Prime drivers inside the top 5 of the Prime class, and in particular we're looking at the battle for P2 in the Prime class, P6 on the overall positions. And that's Alan McCain chasing after Reece Watt here, and well, we have not seen Reece Watt up inside the top 3 for some time here today in the Circuit Zolder region, but now we are seeing him back up where I think he feels he belongs in terms of the pace in that Honda. And the JW Motorsport driver is going to try and end on a high here today, despite starting on quite a low. And as they make the way in towards turn at number 10, I think right now he's just got to worry about McCain, with Daniel Holmer 2.6 seconds clear, unless he can find a way to really usher himself up behind Daniel Holmer with not long to go. Meanwhile, speaking of the driver trying to usher his way further up the field, this is Adam McNally, who looks around the outside of Wayne Douglas, and in fact Adam Delmont going around the outside as well. As Wayne Douglas got a problem. All turns, he just a slow down, because Douglas going very slowly out of 1 into 2, and he is falling back very quickly. And well, this is releasing Mikey Doble to run off to lead this race to the finish. But meanwhile, Adam McNally right now finds himself in P2 for Excite Racing over in the Pro class. He hasn't been here in a long time in the NXTCC, it has to be said. But to be fair, we're not complaining, because it's great to see 2 members of Excite running together, but they're going to swap places, Delmont and McNally, with the fact that McNally there making a bit of a mess of what was the chicane, the Kleiner chicane, almost claiming another victim, and in return Adam Delmont comes on through to take P2, and as they make the way through turn number 7, you can see now that Delmont, I think, will try to hold off McNally and also Douglas all the way to the end, whilst trying to chase down Mikey Doble. But I think Mikey Doble may just have enough space and time on his hands with 2 seconds between them. As meanwhile, we look a little bit further back to Alan McCain here, who continues to try and pressure Reece Watt. In return has Sam Smith behind, and Sam Smith, of course, his teammate from iRacing Esports in the Pro class. So if they swap places, it will be only overall as they make the way out of turns 8, 9 and down towards 10. But further back, Michael Lee's battling here with Ian Manners, and of course these 2 earlier having a bit of a coming together at the turn 7 chicane when Ian Manners rejoined and Michael Lees was making his way on through, and I think they may have a little chat about that after the race. But we have to cut from them and look to what is Alan McCain here, who's battling with Sam Smith on his inside, and I think McCain's going to let this go, but he can't let it go too much, because I think Sam Smith will be relying on McCain to act as a little bit of a stopgap with regards to Chris Daines, who wants to try and come on through and take off of Sam Smith what is P5 in the Pro class, P7 overall, as they make the way through turns 2 and 3. And of course McCain, he will not want Daines to come through, because look who's behind there in P4 in the Prime class and looking to try and get into the hump. It's none other than Matthew Addy from Next Gen Racing Yellow as they make the way out of turn 4 and down towards turn number 5. But as they make the way in the charge here, well, Chris Daines looks up the inside. He's going to go for it, thinks about it, but then at the last moment snakes his way back into the train. And as they make the way now, Daines definitely tempting it as they come on through and up towards turn number 7. They charge. But meanwhile, we look here as there's contact between Wayne Douglas and Adam McNally. Now, what on earth has happened there? The two of them have come together very suddenly, and I'm not exactly sure how it's played out. But the problem is Wayne Douglas is going to drop down the order like a stone as he waits to rejoin. And Daniel Holmer now looks at a potential chance at picking up an overall podium once again as he runs behind third place driver Adam McNally. And Holmer's definitely going to bite at this. But of course, what this does also do is it releases Reese Watt to go hunting after Daniel Holmer as they make the way down towards turn number 10 for the penultimate time. There's not long to go, as meanwhile Sam Smith here side by side with what is in front McCain. He has to back out. In fact, he has to back out. This is Chris Daines who goes around the outside of him and takes off in what is P4 in the pro class there. And Daines making the move count and now looking to go around the outside of what is there Alan McCain. Onto the brakes, they go into 1. McCain's going to try and defend the inside here to help his teammate out, no doubt. But as they make the way out to 1 into 2, Daines gets it covered off and makes his way into turn 2. And Chris Daines flying his way back up through the field, having to recover into this race. Indeed, Sam Smith as well, it has to be said, has gained 18 places, having started all the way from practically the back of the field. So for him to be in P5 in class right now, and P18, oh, not P18 overall, P8 overall, as I get my eyesight corrected there. It's the case that for Sam Smith having a good solid race, but he's dropping there to Nick Clemens as he releases his teammate on through. And I think they're trying to line up with one another in order to get maximum possible points for the team and also their respective championships. But meanwhile, as we look a bit further back to what is Ian Manners here, chasing after in front of him, Matt Emmons. Well, he's trying to hunt down P7 in the prime class, P16 overall to the finish. Emmons has got the run here, but Emmons is going to cover off the inside as they make the way into the brakes and no way through. It looks like there's a bit of contact and Manners has to back out, but as they make the way up the hill, you can see now Michael Lee's trying to come on through and puts himself between the two primes. But as we look to the front of the field, well, it was a strong race too, which saw him take the win. And as he comes through the chicane, it has been definitely a momentum-based race, and he's had the momentum all the way from start to finish. And Mikey Doble comes on through to take the checker flag in race number 3. Your winner overall in the pro class ahead of Adam Delmont P2, and it will be Adam McNally who brings home his maiden podium of the season ahead of Daniel Homer, who makes it 3 wins out of 3. Reese Watt comes on home P2 in the prime class, P5 overall ahead of Chris Daines, who recovered to 4th in the pro class, and Alan McCain on the podium there, P7 overall, P3 in the prime class ahead of Matthew Addy. And then Nick Clemens comes on a home P9 ahead of Sam Smith, P10 overall, with Jamie Dory the best of the rest. And then Wayne Douglas missing out there with a difficult end to his race after it was looking so strong for so long. Isaac Doble P13, top 5 P5 finish in the prime class. He'll be happy with that. Cameron Gardner P14, Luke Jones at P15 as they make the way on around, and then Matt Emmons at P16, P7 in class in a battling fight up through the field and definitely making himself known in that top 10 fight. Michael Lees P17, Ian Manners P18, and then Jonathan Collins P19. Not quite able to replicate what he achieved in what was race number 2, but still I think he'll be pleased with how things have gone generally today. And then Gianni Peroni P20 ahead of Will Redford, who comes on home P21, and the last of our finishers on the lead lap. In fact, he'll take P20 at the finish, with Peroni being demoted to P21 there, and we see coming across the line, well, I believe that was and Daniel Weston finishing a lap down on the field. But a fantastic race from start to finish in race number 3, albeit missing 3 laps due to the safety car. But of course, we want our drivers to race safely and in the best possible conditions, and it's understandable why we do that. But as we see our drivers making the way back round to the pit lane, we look to Mikey Doble coming down the pit lane right now, and well, not a race one he wanted, and indeed it looked as though it was carrying on from the way it played out at the end of Spain. But races 2 and 3 bringing home back-to-back wins, and everything seems to be back on track. But Adam Delmont as well having a great set of results here today, definitely a huge contender. And Adam McNally, well, it's been a while since we've seen him on the podium, but he will be there overall and also in the pro class podium today. And the Excite Racing driver, sometimes you just got to pick up the pieces when they come to you, but he also put on a stellar performance. And if it weren't for a mistake at the Kleiner chicane, could he have been P2? That's one question that he and his teammates may be asking. Daniel Holman, meanwhile, in the prime class, bringing home that trio of wins here today, doing what Reese Watt did a round ago in Spain. And there we can see Matthew Addy Parked in the pit lane, another solid set of results here. Not quite the results he may have wanted, because he did have the pace to win, but I think he'll still be happy with that. And Isaac Doble, very pleased with his performances, no doubt, NDA Honda Racing, as he has had 3 very strong performances here today. But as we now come on to our race results, subject to any stewards' inquiries, we start off with the overall results, of course. Mikey Doble bringing home the win in race 3 by 2.7 seconds over Adam Delmont, and then the Excite Racing pair of Delmont and Adam McNally completing the overall podium and the pro podium ahead of Daniel Holmer, your Pro-Am race winner, taking home the win by 9/10 of a second over Reece Watt in the end, who recovered to P5 over the course of the entire this evening. It really has been a climb up a mountain for Reece Watt, but he found it. And then Chris Daines P6 ahead of Alan McCain P7, who completes the Pro-Am podium. Pro-Am finisher P4 there of Matthew Addy P8 overall, Nick Clemens P9, Jamie Dory P10, and then best of the rest there in P11, Wayne Douglas. As we now come on to the individual classes, we can see here, starting with the Pro class, Mikey Doble taking the win ahead of Adam Delman and Adam McNally, completing your Pro podium. And then Chris Daines P4, resurging to P4 after a difficult start to the race, but still great driving through the field alongside his teammate Gianni Perrone, but Perrone having that difficult end to his race, of course. Nick Clemens P5, Jamie Dory P6, Wayne Douglas P7, Gavin Garner P8, Michael Lees P9, Sam Smith P10, and then best of the rest there, Will Redford P11, and Gianni Perrone finishing a lap down. And then we come on to the Pro-Am class, and we can see here, out of our starters and finishers, Daniel Holmer bringing home the win to make it 3 out of 3. 8.5 tenths ahead of Reece Watt, and then it was a further 2.1 seconds to Alan McCain, who puts himself on the podium for the first time this season for iRace Esports. Matthew Addy P4 there, missing out on a podium to wrap up his campaign in round number 3, but still he'll be coming back to round number 4 full of buoyancy and hope, I think, given the pace he's shown today. Isaac Doble P5 there, one to watch out for. Indeed, the Doble family members in the Pro-Am class of Isaac Doble and Joseph Doble both showing great promise. Luke Jones P6 there, not to be his data. I think he had the pace to definitely be fighting for podiums, if not just the top 5. Matt Emmons P7, Ian Manners P8, Jonathan Collins P9, and then Nigel Stott, the first of our finishers, a lap down in P10. Best of the rest P11, Philip Bruberg, and then Joseph Doble, Elwin Sykes, Paul Scott, and Daniel Weston completing the finishers, 1 lap down. With Liam Silkstone there, P16, Mark Sykes P17 with early retirements, the pair of them, and I believe they may not be classified as finishers as a result. But those are the final sets of results today, ladies and gentlemen, and now that means it's time for us to get ready for post-round interviews with our volunteer drivers. We'll be back in approximately 10 minutes' time for our post-round interviews. Don't go anywhere, it's going to be interesting to hear the perspective of our drivers, particularly in what has been a very dramatic day at Circuit Zolder. We'll be back soon, don't go anywhere, you won't want to miss them. Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, it is time for us to kick off our post-round interviews with our volunteer drivers. We've only had 3 volunteers so far. We may have a 4th volunteer in the works. I think a lot of our drivers decided to take quite a bit of a breather and also currently analysing what happened towards the end of the racing today, particularly in race number 3, where there were a few major incidents and shunts, and therefore they may just be taking a look back in terms of what instance they may be reporting to the stewards post-round. But still, we're going to be hearing very shortly from Adam McNally, the pro driver from iRacing, who's had a very good end to his day and also 2 strong results to start off the day. Then we'll be hearing from Verano Motorsports' Chris Staines, another one of our pros, batting in the podium positions all the way through, but missing out to a degree in race number 3, given the opening incident dropping him down through the field, but a great recovery to P6 overall. And then we'll be hearing from NDA Honda Racing's Mikey Doble, the pro driver, of course, who finished in P2 in race number 1, then making it back-to-back wins for the remainder of the day. But as we come on to our first interviewee of the evening, starting with Adam McNally, he now joins us in the interview room. Adam, going into tonight, it looked as though you'd be battling to be fighting inside the top 10, but come the end of tonight, you've walked away with a 3rd place and being right in the battle for P2 come the finish. Circuit Zolder has treated you well tonight.
I still have no idea how I managed to get a podium. Wasn't expecting a podium, but I'll take it.
Oh, indeed, an unexpected podium. But just take us through from your perspective, of course, because the first couple of rounds have not necessarily gone the way you've wanted them to. And now today, it does look as though you've really found your rhythm at Circuit Zolder. Is this a circuit you came into expecting it to work out for yourself?
Well, to be honest with you, I just got a bit more practice in. I managed to get an hour or 2 in last night with everybody else, where normally I'm jumping in 5-10 minutes before qualifying, not driving in, which is very hard, especially with the pace everyone else has. So I think a bit of practice in the car, I might be able to do a bit better.
Well, indeed, and with that practice paying dividends in the end, take us through from your perspective qualifying, because it looked very difficult in qualifying to find space on circuit with 31 cars all trying to share the track and put times in. Were you able to get the lap you wanted in, or did you find you had to compromise in the end?
Well, to be fair, I had decent space at the beginning, and I think I set my fastest lap on lap 4. But then I crashed the car, and by the time I come to refueling the car with tyres, I just thought there was no point going back out. I was P5. I come back and I was P10. I thought, well, it just is what it is. We'll just see how we'll go in the race.
Oh, coming on to the race then, of course, qualifying and being in the hunt for a top 10 through qualifying. And in the race itself, end up finishing P10. Bit of a dramatic run through the opening sequence of corners, albeit we're taking a look back at race 3 in the background where there's a lot of drama in the opening sequence of corners. Where were you caught up in all of that in the first race?
I think I dropped a couple of places, but I managed to make them up towards the end for race 1. Race 2, I got spun, I think, from about P8 again, all the way back to about 22, finished 11th. So, well, it wasn't too bad, and like I said, race 3, I just managed to stay out of trouble. Apart from the end, I think, I can't remember who it was I had contact with. Like, they sort of spun me, and then I spun them in the second chicane. Which is obviously not what you want to happen, but it's just pushing hard.
Oh, most definitely. It's been an evening of hard battling between drivers. And of course, these touring car machines can take a bit of a knock or a bit of elbows out racing. And we even got to see that almost between yourself and teammate Adam Delmont coming through the Kleiner chicane, albeit a little bit of a mistake by yourself, costing you the ability to put one over him in P2.
Oh, I honestly thought I really messed that up. I thought I was going to get a slowdown and everything. I was happy just not to get the slowdown. And the fact, like you said, Delmont said he nearly hit us. I didn't realise how close he was, but obviously pretty close.
Oh, indeed, it was very close. We caught it on camera. I think it was literally a couple of inches that could have made the difference. But coming on, of course, to your run over the course of tonight, take us through the Honda, of course, that 75 kilograms here at Circuit Zolder, a circuit that's got so many heavy braking zones. Were you feeling the tyre wear towards the end of each race?
Actually, to be fair, I preferred the car towards the end of the race. Change of direction's pretty good in the Honda, even with the weight. It's the curbs. I was noticing the high Hondas can ramp them curbs so much better than the Honda. The Honda just does not like it.
Well, indeed, and it does look as though with the Honda being quite sensitive with regards to those curbs and abusing the curbs being one of the key things here at Circuit Zolder. What did you do to try and offset that and avoid the car from coming unstable or loose?
Free and hope.
Oh, I do like that mentality.
Yeah.
But with regards to your performances tonight, of course, and with a little bit of prayer and hope, bringing it on home in P3, how are you feeling with regards to your championship campaign so far, given that we're heading into the end of the first half of the season next week?
I couldn't even tell you where I was. I'm just, like I said, I'm just happy to learn the touring cars. It's been a long time. So getting used to front wheel drive again, it's a bit of a challenge in itself. But it's been good fun. Good racing so far. I'm more than happy with how it's going.
And, well, with regards to how it's going and what lies ahead, we, of course, head to the Red Bull Ring at the full Grand Prix circuit in a week's time. How are you feeling for the Austrian circuit? Is it a favourite?
Definitely better than tonight. There's a lot less curbs ahead. Nice flowing track, so it should be interesting.
Well, we look forward to seeing how you get on in a week's time. But just before we do let you go, Adam, is there anybody you'd like to give a shout out or a thank you to live on the broadcast this evening?
Yeah, just my teammates, Excite Energy. You guys are doing the broadcast, and everyone who does the work behind, including like the race stewards, even down to the safety car driver. I know he didn't turn up for race 3, but they said to sit and wait just for a crash. Fair play.
Oh, we do appreciate the kind words, Adam, but looking back to yourself, it's been a pleasure having you in the interview room. Congratulations on your results today, particularly that podium in race number 3, and we look forward to seeing how you and the Excite Racing team get on in round number 4 in a week's time.
Right, thank you very much.
So hearing there from Adam McNally, and very happy with his performances today with regards to bringing on home that 3rd place in race number 3, but also with regards to his qualifying, whereby fighting to be inside the top 10, and indeed throughout the races, in race number 1 a P10 finish, in race number 2 recovering all the way to P11, and then find himself staying clear of trouble in race number 3 and not getting it wrong in the end. The only mistake he made cost him a P2, but you can imagine in his mind he still would be very happy with the fact that he's been able to put himself up on the podium, get some major points, and as he said, with regards to his championship campaign, not really too worried about it, focusing on having fun and going from race to race. And that's the spirit to have, because it does seem as though those results and indeed the fun is coming on through, and well, I can imagine he'll definitely be on a crusade for another set of top 10 finishes, if not inside the top 5 or another podium, when we go to the Red Bull Ring next week. But now, coming on to our next interview for this evening, we make our way over to what is Chris Daines from Verano Motorsport. And of course, Chris Daines having a good run over the course of this evening, and one of our drivers who regularly does have a good run of results, and well, he is one of the favourites, of course, in the championship so far. And as he joins us in the interview room very shortly, it'll be interesting to hear his thoughts in terms of the battling tonight, given the fact that when we last spoke to him in round number 1, he was very pleased to be hunting after leaders and staying within the pace of the likes of Mikey Doble, but today he seemed to have the pace to really take the fight to them. And as he joins us in the interview room now, Chris, when we last spoke to you in round number 1, you were talking about how happy you were to be running on similar pace to the likes of Mikey Doble, Will Redford and company. Today, really, on terms of 1 lap pace, we saw in qualifying, you were the man of the moment, and in the races as well. When you had a clear run, you had a lot of pace at your fingertips. Today, despite what happened in race number 3, it's got to be a huge confidence boost for you and the team at Verano.
I'm really happy with tonight. I'll get to race 3 in a minute, but I'm really happy with tonight, to be honest with you. I mean, I got pole position and I got fastest laps in every single race. I just seem to gel with this circuit for some reason. I don't know why. And yeah, I just found a lot more pace out there. Not a lot more pace, but I found a bit more pace that was needed. But yeah, no, I really had fun tonight. It was great fun.
Indeed, you looked as though you were having fun all the way through the proceedings this evening in terms of the battling and whatnot from start to finish. And speaking about your qualifying lap, looked as though it was a near perfect lap out there, perhaps a little bit of fine tuning. Of course, we know that with yourself, there's no such thing as a perfect lap. You're always trying to push a little bit harder. But how did you find finding the space at Zolder, given the fact 31 cars and only 4 kilometres of space to play with?
So tonight I found it quite easy because I was the third pit stall in qualifying, so I managed to get out straight away. And my teammate Gianni had his track map up, and he was letting me know when the last driver was out the pit lane. And luckily, the last driver came out the pit lane when me and Jamie were rounding the final 4 corners, so I knew he had a lot of space. So actually, I didn't encounter much traffic at all. A couple of times I did, but the qualifying lap itself, it was spot on up until the very last corner where I lost a 10th. But other than that, I was kicking myself about that a little bit, but just done enough to get pole. So yeah, it was a pretty good qualifying session for me.
Oh, indeed. And, well, one thing I have to ask, of course, normally we use Mikey Doble as the comparator for this season in terms of that one-lap pace, but seeing Wayne Douglas alongside you on that front row, matching you closely, but not quite enough in the Veloster, did that make you raise an eyebrow and think, I've got a new rival in the field?
Yeah, so I've raced with Wayne a couple of times in pre-season testing, and we've done a pre-season race at Zolder, where we were tonight, and he was at the front, so I knew he was going to be there or thereabouts with us. But I haven't raced him in anger, so again, it was like I said last week, or the week round one, sorry, it's difficult to know new drivers and what they're going to do. So unfortunately, I got a slowdown when I was leading the race in race one, which really hampered me, so I had to drop back to fifth. But when I sat behind Douglas, I was just sort of sitting there, just waiting for him to make a mistake, but it didn't really happen in the end. But yeah, the slowdown really, really annoyed me because I think I could have held on to the win for that one because, again, I did have the pace, but well, it's what it is.
Indeed, unfortunate, but still giving you plenty of inspiration for race number 2. And in race number 2, it did look as though it was going to come down to fine margins between yourself and Mikey Doble. Just take us through that, of course, because first time you've really been on the charge and the run versus the current championship leader.
Yeah, race 2 was a tricky one because I really struggled to get the car up to temperature in the first 2 laps, and I started losing a bit of time to the cars ahead. But when Redford came past me, he door bashed me a little bit, which is absolutely fine as touring car, but he door bashed me a little bit, so I went wide. So I thought I'll sit behind Redford for a bit, and he actually made a mistake because I was catching him up. Whether it was pressure or not, I don't know. Oh no, that's what it was. He hit someone in front of me, didn't he? And then everyone started spinning off. But then it was a 1.7 gap to Doble, and I thought, I don't know, there's not enough laps, but I'll do what I can to try and close the gap. And yeah, I think when I was catching Doble then, I finished 5/10 behind, so I did take 1.2 seconds out with him within the space of 10 laps. So going into race 3, I knew I was not the man to beat, but I knew I could be if I hooked it all up. But unfortunately, yeah, that didn't come to fruition, really, did it?
No, unfortunately, we've just caught on the replay playback that we've got in the background what happened to yourself at turn number 5 with regards to going over the curb and the car coming loose, and then with the suspension damage, the car being an absolute handful to bring on home. Just before we come to that specific moment, of course, a top 6 reverse grid, and we saw a Pro-Am on pole in the form of Daniel Holmer. Did you think to yourself, you know what, it's only 6 cars were being reversed, actually this might really make for an enticing race?
Yeah, I was looking at the win for that one for sure because I knew I was quicker than the guys ahead. It was just Doble behind me that I had to worry about. But again, I really struggled with that first 2 laps, getting the car up to temperature. So the top 5 sort of pulled away ever so slightly, and I saw Doble hounding me behind me. So I thought, well, I'll let him past. But unfortunately, I made the mistake before I could let him past. But yeah, that chicane was a bit tricky because I didn't really see that coming because it's never happened to me in that chicane before, and I've done a lot of laps around here, so I didn't even get to see the replay, but I don't know what happened. I've hit the curb too hard, the car's jumped in the air, landed and put me in the wall, but I didn't want to tow to pits because I knew it was like a 1 minute 30 tow plus the service time and stuff, so I tried to drive it. Did I have 3 wheels? I don't know if I had 3 wheels or was it just broken because it felt like I was driving on 3 wheels all the way back to the pit lane.
Indeed, as we just look, you're coming into the pit lane. Let's see if we can get an alternate camera angle here and we can confirm that for you. Well, you've had your fast repair, so I think you did still have a 4th wheel there, albeit I think it was more pointing sideways rather than vertical. That's not the right amount of camber on that Honda. But either way, it did look as though the car was really in a nasty state. But of course, the safety car came out due to a major incident in the run down towards turn number 5, and that caused the field to bunch up. At that point, were you thinking to yourself, you know what, I've been given a second chance?
Definitely. When that came out, I just thought, right, that's why I drove it to the pit lane because I thought I can tag onto the back of these guys. But yeah, there was a bit of melee during the safety car. When the safety car was coming in on the final tight right-hander before the last corner, someone spun. So we all had to stop, and the green light went, and we're still sitting there trying to get going. So I was miles back from the pack, and I was in 26 at the time. So to make up 20 places and get the fastest lap by over 0.3 of a second to my next rival, you know, I just carved through that field. That was probably the best race I think I've had so far, and it was so clean as well, and I made some cracking moves. So I'm really chuffing myself for that one, to be honest with you, because last round 2, I made some silly errors, silly mistakes. I got some penalties handed out to me, which is completely accepted. And you know, you get into those situations, especially if you don't get race 1 right, you then have to struggle with the rest of the night, and you know, you push and push and push, and then I just got a bit over the top with things, and yeah, so I'm glad I've come back from that horrible round 2 to really you know, show that I've still got a bit of fire left in me.
Well, indeed, I think the fire burns bright with yourself, Chris. And of course, with only one more round before we go into the Christmas break, we're now looking ahead to the Red Bull Ring in a week's time. How are you feeling for the Austrian circuit? Of course, the full Grand Prix layout.
Yeah, good. Again, we done pre-season testing around there, and everyone was really quick. I wasn't the quickest there, so I need to do a bit of work around there. Red Bull's not exactly my favourite circuit; it's not my strong point. So, no doubt the Honda's going to have 75 kilos on board as well for the next one. So, yeah, I'll have to get testing with that one. But I'm looking forward to it. I think everyone's going to have some really good pace around there, so it's not going to be as you know, as fastest lap after fastest lap for me that time round, because yeah, I've seen some of the guys pace around there, and you know, the opposition's really quick around there. So, but I'm really looking forward to it.
Well, that's good to hear. And just before we begin to let you go, I have to ask, with regards to your teammate Gianni Peroni tonight, of course, looking very fast in the Elantra all the way through the evening from qualifying into the races. But with regards to the races, seemingly finding a lot of bad luck in every race, whether it's contact, a mistake, or something in between. Just what's the mood with Peroni at the moment? And I ask for from a sort of a team mentality perspective, because he's been looking very fast, and we've seen yourself and your teammate working very closely together in terms of making sure not to obstruct one another when battling your way up through the field.
Yeah, Gianni's like me. He's very passionate, and he's extremely quick, as we saw in qualifying. You know, we were 1-2 at one point, and he has so much pace under the hood. And unfortunately, like this round, he was just caught up in so many incidents. You know, whether it was down to someone else or the position of the car, I don't know. I haven't really looked at the replays back yet, but it's, yeah, he's. I need to go back and pick him up a little bit, I think, because he's on a bit of a downer at the moment. So I will go back and have a chat with him, and you know, hopefully get all our team ready for Red Bull Ring. But Gianni in general, he's an extremely quick driver, extremely quick, and yeah, we'll go and speak to him, and I'm sure he'll be back fighting hard for Red Bull Ring before Christmas.
Well, indeed, and we look forward to that, the flying charge of the Elantra N in his very capable hands. But just as we do let you go, Chris, is there anybody you would like to say thank you to or give a shout out to live on the broadcast this evening?
Yeah, the usual people, same yourself, Paul, for putting on a great broadcast again. I always watch it back on the same night as I've just raced. I really shouldn't, because I've got to get up early in the mornings, but I just can't help myself. I do like watching it back, so big shout out to you. NXTGEN, obviously, for putting on a fantastic championship, and obviously all my teammates that join and slug it out with me, and all of our sponsors involved as well.
Well, Chris, we appreciate the kind words, and it's been a pleasure to have you as always in the interview room. Congratulations on your pair of podiums and also the recovery to P6 in race number 3. We look forward to seeing you and the team at the Red Bull Ring in a week's time, but until then, we wish you all the best.
See you later. Take care, mate.
Take care. So speaking there to Chris Daines, who having a difficult end to his evening, but still making a great recovery drive. And in his own words there, very proud of his performance tonight and on that recovery drive, but also in races 1 and 2. A mistake in race 1 with the slowdown cost him that opportunity of the win, and in race 2, taking Mikey Doble the distance, but not quite able to have enough time to close him down, but with a very strong end to his race with the fastest lap. As we look in the pictures here, where he's had to battle his way up through the order after the restart in race number 3 with that very slow restart with the car going loose in the run to turn number 8. And definitely Chris Daines and the team at Verano will be coming back strong in the Red Bull Ring, and where you can imagine here the pro driver in the Honda will definitely be thinking now that he's got the pace to potentially bring home some wins on the table. He just needs one opportunity to do so, and he will be striking hard and fast. But as we now come on to our next interviewee for this evening, we now come to Mikey Doble himself. And as we do get ready to speak to our championship leader going into tonight, and who I believe will still be our championship leader come the end of tonight, albeit we will confirm that as of the broadcast next week. It's been an evening to remember for the NDA Honda racing driver, in the fact 3 strong performances culminating in 2 wins on the bounce. But let's hear from himself as he gets ready to join us in the interview room, and well, let's get his perspective, of course, on having to bounce back of the adversity from Spain. But as he joins us now in the interview room, Mikey, the way it ended in Spain a week ago was not the way that I think anybody would want it to end, yourself included, given the fact you're on that great streak of wins and then having to bring it to an abrupt halt in perhaps the strangest of fashion. But back on form tonight, 2 wins on the bounce in races 2 and 3, and also second place in race number 1. But it wasn't easy tonight. Wayne Douglas, Chris Daines, Adam Delmont, also Will Redford to an extent, a good number of drivers all really taking the fight to you.
Yeah, I mean, it continues to get tougher as the season goes on. Yeah, I thought there was a lot of great performances out there from some other drivers tonight. I think particularly Wayne Douglas coming in for his first meeting of the season. He had some really good pace and excellent racecraft as well to keep the lead in race 1. I didn't really have much of an answer for him. Adam Delmont as well. He wasn't feeling the greatest today, but he's toughed it out and come away with some good results. So yeah, it continues to get tougher week on week.
Well, indeed, and as it gets tough, the tough get going, of course, and we know you're one to bounce back whenever it goes wrong, and also you're perhaps one of the strongest drivers out there in this field, if not the strongest when it comes to being put under pressure. And let's start off with qualifying today. We spoke to Chris Daines only moments ago with the pole sitter. Qualifying was so tight and tense with regards to the lap times, and in the end, the top 16 separated by 1 second and half a tenth. From your perspective, the closest qualifying's been so far?
Yeah, indeed. I mean, it's actually a very technical track, quite difficult to drive. So I was surprised to see the times that close, because normally you would get close times on a track that is a bit more forgiving and easier to drive. But no, it just shows that the level of everyone in the field is improving week on week as people get more in tune with the cars. And also that the balance of performance is working. You know, tonight we could really see that, you know, the Hyundais were definitely on a level playing field, if not slightly advantageous from having 50 kilos less than us. So it's definitely doing its job, and it's just bringing the Hondas back to some of the other manufacturers.
Well, indeed, and with that balance of performance being factored in and the racing as a result really now starting to up in the tempo, focusing on race number 1, very close fighting between yourself, Douglas, and also Daines. Daines leading at one point but find himself with a slowdown and dropping in behind, and then it was the hunt between yourself and Wayne Douglas. I have to ask, what do you feel is in that Hyundai Veloster and also Wayne Douglas' driving that gave him that ability to hold you off? Because he just looked so every time you could get a little bit closer, Wayne Douglas had a response.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, he was putting the car in the right positions. You can tell racing with Wayne that he's got a bit of a real life background, because he knew exactly where to place the car, and even towards the end of the race, as his tyres were, by his own admission, going off, and I had some more pace, I just didn't really have an area on the track where I could make a clean pass without risking taking us both out the race. And I think with the fact that he's only doing a partial season and he's not in the championship fight, it just meant that I had to be a little bit rational about the decisions I was making. And if second was what it was going to be, then I just had to sort of make the most of it and try and get them in race 2.
And then coming on to race number 2, you certainly made the most of the second race, albeit with Chris Daines mounting pressure on you as the race went on, and those lap times were coming through for the pair of you. But just take us through there, because quickly making the charge into lead, and then Chris Daines coming through like a thunderstorm.
Yeah, I can't really remember. I mean, race 3 was so eventful, I can't really remember exactly what happened in race 2, but I remember the first few laps were pretty frantic, and to get into the lead early doors, I think the pace in my driving and the way I was driving the car, I had some really good pace in the first 2 or 3 laps of the race, so I had a bit of an advantage there to get into the lead and build a little bit of a gap. But Chris was very quick at the end. The way he was obviously looking after his tyres, or the way he's got his brake bias set, obviously suits his car at the end of a run. And he was catching me by 2 or 3 tenths a lap there on the last 3 laps. But like I say, it's about winning in the slowest time possible and with the minimal risk. So there was enough pace in the tank. Should I've had to go a little bit quicker and take some risk, but no, it's a good race nonetheless.
Oh, indeed. And in race 2, interestingly, with your teammate and your closest championship rival, Will Redford, picking up a P4 in race 1 and then a P10 in race number 2. It's given you a bit of a buffer in the championship before we come on to race number 3. Did you have any thoughts on that in terms of Will's misfortunes compared to your fortunes tonight?
Yeah, I mean, you'll probably recall me saying at the end of the interview last week that, you know, it will swing in roundabouts and everyone will have their fair share of bad luck and disastrous races. And, you know, I had mine in race 3. Luckily, it was race 3 and there was no further races beyond that were affected by my poor finish. But, you know, unfortunately for Will, he had a poor race 2 by his own standards, and it put him on the back foot for race 3 and ultimately got him involved in some extra trouble that he may not have been involved in had he not have had a poor race 2. So I think, you know, Chris didn't have a great Barcelona. Will's not had a great night tonight. So, you know, the championships are a marathon, and I'll be interested to see how we can bounce back from that next week.
Oh, indeed. And speaking of bouncing, really ending your day today on the bounce with a win in race number 3. And as we look at it in the background pictures at the moment, of course, as you say, a very eventful race, and perhaps the one that sticks most vividly in your mind. But just take us through the start before the safety car came out. Of course, battling with Chris Daines at the very beginning, finding yourself fighting your way with Chris Daines into turn number 1. Some great battling ahead as well. And then Chris Daines comes out of the picture at turn number 5.
Yeah, it took me by surprise actually to see him make an unforced error as such on his own. Yeah, I mean, he obviously went off into the wall, and I didn't see anything of him after that. By all accounts, he stormed back up to P6, but obviously wouldn't have been in contention for the lead. So I just tried to be patient in race 3, something I didn't do last week. Didn't show much patience last week, but tonight just thought I'll just abide my time. You know, it's 15 laps is a long race round Zolder. I could see that the guys that were running at the front in that race probably not so used to running at the point of the field anyway, so we're likely to make some mistakes and drive a little bit defensively. So managed to sit there, just claw bits at a time. Wayne Douglas come back into the picture with a good overtake on me actually into turn 1. Which I couldn't grumble at. It was a good move, and then he dragged us both up to, I can't remember the guy that was leading at the time, and he pulled the similar move on him, and then it just kicked off for half a lap. There was 4 cars under a blanket all fighting for the lead, and then I believe Wayne might have had a slowdown going into the second chicane, and I had to take the opportunity where I could before it got to the single file section and actually get ahead of him before he slowed down, run out, and then from there it was just about building a gap and not making any mistakes.
Oh, indeed, and we caught that moment between yourself and Wayne Douglas where Wayne sent it on the inside into turn 1 in a brilliant braking move and overtake. And with regards to the driver who's up front and leading, Daniel Holmer, of course, the prime driver who showed a lot of pace today. And of course, we asked for your comment on Reece Watt last time out, picking up the triplet of wins in Spain, and Daniel Holmer's now done the same here today in the prime class at Zolder. It looks as though we seem to have a number of prime drivers who are trying to replicate your triplets of wins over the course of the season.
Yeah, indeed. Like I say, it's always good to see people improving themselves as a driver in the series, because, like I said, I mean, other drivers have alluded to it as well. The standard is incredibly high in this series this season, and you know, it's not just about the drivers that are fighting at the front. It's the depth in the field and how, like you said, how close it is in qualifying, and you know the gap. You know, the difference in pace between running in the top 5 and running in 18th is not that great. And if you're slightly off your game one week, you're going to find yourself battling in the midfield, scrapping for single points here and there. But he's obviously got the bit between his teeth tonight and was burning it up with the big guns in the pros. So good on him, and hopefully we'll probably see him as a pro driver in probably second half of this season, if not next season.
Oh, Indeed, and speaking of the season that lies ahead, of course, next week we head to the Red Bull Ring in Austria. Just a comment before we come on to the Red Bull Ring itself. Of course, your championship campaign going on a flying start currently. You lead the way going into round number 4. Is this where you expected to be at this point before the Christmas break? Or do you think, as that has been some, well, apart from Spain, that it's perhaps been a bit of fortune on side as well?
Well, I wouldn't say it's fortune. I mean, generally I've got into the lead on my pace, and I've kept it clean, not making any mistakes, and just watched other people sort of fritter away around me. So, like I said, I mean, there's plenty of people in the race that have got the same pace as me. It's just the way they apply it and their attitude towards the racing, and whether they can keep it up over 3 races across the night. I've raced against a lot of people in NXTGEN leagues where they've been quicker than me, and I'll outscore them at the end of the season because they make too many mistakes. And I think, you know, unfortunately, Chris Daines is kind of fulfilling that mantra at the moment, where he's got excellent pace, but he needs to string it up for 3 races and come away with 2 or 3 wins on a night to really take the challenge to the championship. And I think at the moment, if I just keep my head down and just keep doing what I'm doing, not try and do anything special, it should be good enough to keep increasing my championship lead. But Red Bull Ring is a bit of a wild card track. I mean, it's a lot of slipstreaming involved around there. It's a very fast track, a lot of heavy braking zones, so opportunities to overtake. So I think the racing will be good, but it'll be stressful for us drivers without a doubt.
Oh, indeed, and that slipstream being a major factor. Are you expecting there to be plenty of battles under braking into likes of turns 1, 2 and 3, given the long straights and the heavy braking zones?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, people are going to have to definitely not get too carried away with the slipstream up the straight, particularly into turn 2. It's a very heavy braking zone, and the corner actually comes back on itself, so you can find yourself dive bombing 4 or 5 cars there if you outbrake yourself and taking out someone 5 cars up in the train. So I think if people keep their wits about them, the racing should be very good, but people need to just watch themselves and not get too carried away with their braking points. But other than that, I think it should be very good, interesting to watch.
Oh, indeed. And of course, we look forward to seeing how you get on in a week's time. But just before we do let you go, Mikey, as always, is there anybody you'd like to give a shout out to or say thank you to live on the broadcast this evening?
Yeah, so anyone who's still up, it's getting very late now, but family, grandparents, mum, dad downstairs, aunties and uncles, not sure I've missed anyone. Thanks as always for another great stream. I look forward to watching it probably tomorrow, and to NXTGEN for putting on the league and getting such a good grid together for this season and making it very enjoyable to race.
Well, Mikey, it has been our pleasure to run this round, indeed the championship thus far, and we'll continue to do so. And it's been a pleasure to have you in the interview room as always. But until next time, congratulations on your double win today and all 3 results being podium finishes. And we look forward to seeing how you get on at the Red Bull Ring in a week's time.
Yeah, thanks, Paul.
All the best. So hearing there from Mikey Doble, and a very interesting perspective in regards to the closeness of the field, and really emphasised the point of his consistency combined with his pace overall, giving Mikey Doble that championship advantage. As he mentioned there, using Chris Daines as an example, someone with a lot of pace but not having the consistent run of the 3 races, and not to be derogatory at all, but I think that's what he's really focusing on, is the fact that he's able to just keep stringing those results together. And there will of course be those speed bumps in the road, like you were saying with Will Redford for example today. Everyone is going to drop a result or 2, but it's making sure to minimise how many points you drop versus how many points you continue to gain, and that is going to be the foundation of a winning championship campaign. And right now for Mikey Doble, it's definitely looking as though it continues to swing his way, but at any moment that momentum could transition another way. And we did see in race number 1 just not quite able to close enough of the fight on Wayne Douglas, and another driver definitely now one he's going to have to watch out for as he goes deeper and deeper into this season. As we now come on to our last interview for the six, we do have a fourth interviewee, although it is getting a little bit late, but he has been very patient for us. We're going to be hearing very shortly from the prime driver of none other than Matthew Addy, a driver who has had an evening of ups and downs. Indeed, it has been a very challenging evening for the Next Gen Racing yellow driver, but as he gets ready to join us, it'll be interesting to hear his perspectives as well, the major championship favourites when it comes to competing in the prime class. And as he joins us now in the interview room, Matthew, going into tonight, of course, second place in the Prime Championship, being led by Reese Watt, albeit by a margin of 24 points after his trio of wins. But it was looking fast, it was looking great on pace, but in the races themselves, it seemed as though misfortune could find you much more easily than others. Not the night you wanted to remember tonight.
No, not too bad, to be honest. Yeah, race 2 really messed up the night, to be honest, but I was happy with the points that I've come away with. I think I could have done a better result in race 1. I would have liked to got the pro and the pro-am win with Wayne for our team, but no, I'm happy with it.
Well, indeed, saying that you're happy with it, so if we dive into it a little bit more, of course, you've been a big advocate of a consistent set of results over the course of the season so far. Not necessarily stealing the headlines up there, but definitely stealing major points round after round, race after race. Going into Circuit Zolder tonight, what was the target from yourself? Because we saw how close it was in qualifying, with the top 16 separated by just over a second.
Yeah, again, the outlook is consistent points. I'm surprised how tight qualifying was on a technical track like this. It's normally a lot different, but no, it was an okay qualifying. I wasn't too bad with how the qualifying went. Getting space on track is always going to be a problem with this amount of cars, this size of grid, but it was good. I thought it was okay.
And then translated it over from qualifying into race number 1. Ended up P11 come the end of race number 1. But it looked a strong race performance from yourself, but a couple of near misses at the start between drivers, and you found yourself right in the thick of it.
Absolutely, yeah. It's always going to be a tricky one with that amount of cars, and this Zolder's got a lot of difficult turns and chicanes. So it's just about awareness, really, making sure you're clear before you make any move, and defending from others as well, really, making sure that they've seen you.
Oh, indeed. And with regards to that defending and battling, of course, we got to see you really take the fight with the likes of Adam McNally and also Michael Leese around you. Not quite able to hunt down Daniel Holmer, who took the win in race number 1, but I think you were enjoying yourself all the same in amongst the pros.
I was, yeah, to be honest. It was good to battle with those guys and keep pace with them for quite a while. I think overall lap pace is probably good for me at the moment based on the people around me, but it's the consistent laps that I need to nail down. I need to consistently be doing those lap times rather than the odd lap now and again.
Indeed, and speaking of consistency, we unfortunately do have to come on to your race 2, which seemed to put that a little bit by the wayside, the consistency. Just take us through what happened from your perspective, because it's not the result I think you wanted that P14.
No, definitely not. No, it was going well, to be honest. I was in the top 10 easily, and I can't remember who it was, to be honest. But someone, I was going for a move on turn 1. I was down the inside, easily ahead, and yeah, they just turned in and turned me around. Really touched my back end, turned me around. So definitely not the result I wanted. Although, to be honest, I am happy with getting back to P14. I thought it was going to be a lot worse considering where I come back on track, which was 20 something. So yeah, it wasn't the end of the world.
Oh, indeed, and bouncing back through the adversity, because at the end of the day, every driver is going to be seeing speed bumps in their championship campaigns, and that's one speed bump you've recovered from quite nicely. And of course, placing yourself a bit outside of the potential reverse grid positions, but did that give you a bit more inspiration going into race number 3, thinking, you know what, I've got the pace to come through the field and potentially go hunting after a podium in race number 3?
Absolutely, yeah. I think I could have done a bit more progress in race 3, to be honest, but I kept coming across people that were really difficult to pass, or very, very much team game as well. I'd always find myself in the middle of a 2 teammates, so one would slow me up for the other one to pass, and then I'd get rid of those 2, and then there was another 2 teammates. So it was difficult. It was a lot of technicality going on, a lot of team game, should we say.
Oh, indeed. And of course, we did have the safety car and the restart with regards to race number 3. But just your thoughts on the battling of race number 3, particularly trying to chase down Alan McCain as time wore on. Because it looked so McCain was a bit vulnerable, but you just ran out the time to actually make it count.
Absolutely, yeah. Alan and Nick were they were sandwiching me. I did get past at one point, but lost it again due to not able to get ahead. The worst thing about race 3 was seeing Reese Watt, who I know is a title contender, against me and in the distance, and unfortunately he was just too far ahead to be able to make any inroads on it.
Oh, indeed, unfortunate there, but still battling to P4 in class in the end and a P8, and that means some overall points as well, which improve your tally there in the overall championship. And I have to ask, now that we have round 4 on the horizon in a week's time and then the Christmas break, how do you feel your championship campaign has been so far? Do you feel as though going into tonight P2 and really one of the running favourites on consistency over big finishes, that it's going the way you want it to, or do you think you need to step it up a little bit further?
I'd like to step it up further. There's always room for improvement. Last week was probably my worst one ever. I don't think I scored anything last week, to be honest. So that's going to class as my drop round, and that's it. I just got a consistent points from here on.
Indeed, and speaking of what lies ahead then, the Red Bull Ring Grand Prix circuit in a week's time. What are your thoughts on the Austrian circuit?
To be honest, I love the circuit. It's one of my favourites. I've driven it the most. As a racing circuit, it's difficult to battle, I find. There's only a couple of overtaken places, and I find it's very much been just a train going around there. But we'll see with these touring cars, it's always changing. Hopefully the added weight to whichever car is going to get it this time, and hopefully that will change it up a bit.
Well, we'll have to wait and see if it mixes things up for you, potentially favourably, given the Velocitor's rather deft and nimble nature. But just before we do let you go, is there anybody you'd like to give a shout out to or say thank you to live on the broadcast this evening?
No, just thanks to everyone watching, all the people at NXTGEN for sorting it out. Hope to be racing Midley, my teammate, again next week. So yeah, just keep up the good work, Paul, as well, and yeah, see you next week.
Well, we really do appreciate that, Matthew, and all the same, we wish you all the best heading into next week's round. Thank you for joining us in the interview, and congratulations once again on a brilliant set of performances tonight.
Thanks, Paul.
All the best. So hearing it there from Matthew Addy, our final interviewee of this evening, and definitely hand to deep today after a great race 1, undermined by a difficult race number 2, but still a great recovery drive to P14, and then fighting for 4th place in the Pro-Am class in race number 3, a P8 overall. And Matthew Addy, definitely one of the major contenders in the Pro-Am class, with his consistency shining through again and again, and his ability to come back from adversity. But of course, he said they needs to, in his mind, step it up to a degree in terms of the finishing positions, given the fact that his main championship rival at the moment and championship leader going into tonight, Reese Watt, finished ahead of him in race number 3, but Watt himself having a difficult evening. So already the drivers having drop rounds assigned to them effectively, in the fact that, in Addy's own words, Spain is going to be his drop round. I think Reese Watt will be looking at this round and thinking it's going to be his drop round, but will they have any more twists in the tail and potential rounds where they're going to be hit hard on points? That'll be the question that they want to avoid having to ask themselves. They want it all clear from here, but if we know anything based on the opening 3 rounds, it's nowhere near as simple as that when the pace is so close. Indeed, we're heading to a circuit where close pace means we're going to see very nip and tuck and intense racing. But there we heard from Matthew Addy, and indeed we have heard from our 4 interviewees this evening. The Pro-Am driver Matthew Addy from NXTGEN Racing Yellow. Before him, you heard from the Pro driver Mikey Doble from NDA Honda Racing. Also, we heard from Chris Staines, the Pro driver from Verano Motorsport, and Adam McNally, the Pro from Excite Racing. But that, ladies and gentlemen, concludes our interviews for this evening, and now it is time for us to wrap up. Thank you very much for watching, and if you have enjoyed tonight's broadcast and you'd like to know more about the NXTGEN Racing community, then why not check out our official website, that's nextgenracing.co.uk, and indeed our website being the home of what is clean and fair sim racing for all, with all professionally organised sim racing events, championships and the community as a whole, and we continue to grow year in, year out as we look ahead to a new year of sim racing in 2023, but of course let's not get ahead of ourselves here. We've still got the NXTCC to continue the story as it transitions drivers over Christmas and into 2023, and just one of our many leagues that we are running, with a number of upcoming leagues as well, including the revival of a fan favourite of what is the Proto GT3 series that is coming up in due course. More details of that available on our website and of course on our official Discord. But as we do look ahead to the future, of course, for our drivers, it's all about getting their heads down, but you can also get your head down and find out more about the series we run, and also speaking to the community as a whole if you join our Facebook group being found at facebook.com/groups/NextGen Racing. But until next time, ladies and gentlemen, when our drivers make their way to the Red Bull Ring for round number 4 on Tuesday the 20th of December for 2022, where we look to wrap up the first half of the championship campaign, well, we have seen multiple different winners in each class. We have seen a grand total now of 3 different winners in the Pro class, and we have seen, unless my memory incorrectly informs me, 5 different winners now in the Pro-Am class. Nothing is certain, and the Red Bull Ring in Austria is going to definitely prove that day is true, in the fact that it's going to be slipstream battling from start to finish. It's going to be all on the brakes. Tyre wear is also going to be important. It's going to be fast. It's going to be furious, and who will come away with the momentum on their side as they go into Christmas Day? We'll find out all that and more in a week's time, but until then, we've been Next Gen Racing. I've been your host, Paul TX141 Walsh, also known as Brit of the Spit, depending on what media you follow me on. And until then, take care, and we wish you all the best. Remember to stay safe, stay well, stay smiling, but most importantly, remember to stay on track. Good night.